Chapter 1070. Kill. Shui Feng was still the fastest as he arrived first. His fists were like blood diamonds that flickered with a crystalline luster. With a punch, the space was directly shattered. It was extremely terrifying. 4th level spirit god. Lu Ming's eyes were solemn. Shui Feng's cultivation should be at the 4th level of the spirit god realm, and he was a very powerful genius with unparalleled combat strength. Lu Ming's body was surrounded by 5 colored wills, which increased the power of the hell-suppressing heaven skill. He met Shui Feng's fists with fists and punched several times in succession. Boom! Boom! The 2 fists collided and the sky shook as if 2 gods were fighting. Then, Lu Ming was sent flying again and retreated far away. Looks like I have to use my 3rd bloodline. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. Shui Feng was too powerful. Even if his talent wasn't as high as Sanguinarum's, it wasn't lower than Huang Kuei's. He should have awakened a 7th level divine bloodline and should have been a 3rd grade genius when he was young. If they were at the same level, Lu Ming could kill such a genius with a flip of his hand. However, Shui Feng's cultivation was too high. He was at the 4th level of the spirit god realm, which was 3 levels higher than Lu Ming. Every level in the spirit god realm was a huge gap that was difficult to make up for, not to mention a gap of 3 levels. Moreover, Shui Feng was a top genius. Kill! Kill! 3 strong men pounced at the same time. Powerful auras filled the air. They were all at the 3rd level of the spirit god realm, and they were a level higher than the previous 2. Bang! 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 Lu Ming punched out and exchanged 3 blows with the 3 men. The 4 of them retreated at the same time. Shui Feng charged at him from behind. Buzz! At this moment, the mountain in the distance shook and a bright light filled the air, shocking everyone. That's a door! Someone exclaimed. Everyone saw a door of light appear at the top of the mountain. It was sparkling and resplendent, and it emitted a dazzling light. Treasure, it must be a peerless treasure. Charge! Some people from small forces exclaimed and then charged towards the mountain with blazing light. Don't even think about it. Some people from Cold Blood Hall also charged over. Brat, consider yourself lucky. Shui Feng fiercely glared at Lu Ming, then put down Lu Ming and rushed towards the mountain peak. Although Shui Feng's battle prowess was strong, Lu Ming's battle prowess had also exceeded his expectations. If he wanted to kill Lu Ming in a few moves, it would be very difficult. If the treasures were taken away by those small forces, then the losses would outweigh the gains, so he quickly rushed over. Charge! The rest of the Cold Blood Hall also rushed over. Sanguinarum glared coldly at Lu Ming before he chased after the Cold Blood Hall members. How can I leave when there are treasures here? Lu Ming smiled and rushed over as well. Although Shui Feng was strong, he still had a trump card he hadn't used yet. If he used it, escaping wouldn't be a problem. Thus, Lu Ming didn't fear him at all. Whoosh! Whoosh! The sound of something tearing through the air could be heard as the group flew forward. After flying for a while, they realized that there was no formation in front of them. That can't be a herb garden, can it? Lu Ming looked back. The territory they had just seen looked like a herb garden, so there was an inscription formation protecting it. As they continued forward, a huge group of palaces appeared in front of them. The group of palaces seemed to cover a large area, but they were very old and full of the aura of time. Many places had collapsed. The mountain was right in the middle of the group of palaces. It looked as if the mountain had fallen from the sky and smashed into the center of the group of palaces, crushing a large area of them. At this time, the light gate on the mountain was even more dazzling. One could vaguely see a jade talisman floating in the light gate. The light gate was a vision formed by the light emitted by the jade talisman. Treasure, it's definitely a treasure. Someone shouted greedily and rushed toward the group of palaces. Get out of my way, a bunch of ants. You're courting death. Shui Feng roared angrily and continuously punched. The fist radiance broke through the air, and a dozen warriors screamed as they were killed. The others were shocked and kept a distance from Shui Feng. However, there were many people from the other forces, and some of them were experts. After avoiding Shui Feng, they didn't give up and continued to rush forward. Hundreds of people rushed toward the mountain. Lu Ming followed at a steady pace. The group of palaces was not dangerous, and there were no formations. They flew smoothly and arrived at the mountain. This mountain looked like a tiger lying there. It looked very lifelike, as if it had been carved out of a huge rock. On the top of the mountain, there were strange lines protruding, like petrified tree roots. What a strange shape. What a strange mountain. But there was no time to think. Everyone stared at the light gate and the jade talisman. The jade talisman was above the tiger's head. As the crowd flew toward the mountain, a fierce battle broke out. The experts of Cold Blood Hall were extremely domineering. They killed those from the smaller forces. Suddenly, a large number of experts were killed, and the mountain was stained with blood. No one noticed that the blood scattered on the mountain directly seeped into the mountain and disappeared, as if it had been swallowed up. Now's the time. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He used the 9 dragons' heaven stomping steps and turned into a flowing light. In an instant, he surpassed the experts of Cold Blood Hall and rushed toward the light gate. Boy, how dare you come again? You're courting death. Shui Feng roared and threw punches at Lu Ming. Fist radiance blasted toward him. Lu Ming took a few steps and his figure flashed, avoiding the fist gleams. Let's attack together and kill him. Sanguinarum shouted and ordered the crowd to surround and kill Lu Ming. Kill! 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 Some people from Cold Blood Hall rushed toward Lu Ming, while others continued to rush toward the light gate. At this time, dozens of people from the smaller forces had been killed. The rest of them were terrified and did not dare to fight anymore. They desperately retreated. Cold Blood Hall was completely in control of the battle. Shui Feng was the fastest. Seeing that he was about to reach the light gate, his eyes burned with passion. This jade talisman was definitely a precious treasure. Perhaps it was a powerful inheritance. Whoosh! At this moment, a black light shot out from the mountain and swept toward Shui Feng. Shui Feng was shocked. He threw out a series of punches to block the black light. A tree root, no, it's a vine. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. He found that it was a vine that attacked Shui Feng. Who dares to stop me? You're courting death. Shui Feng roared and threw out a series of punches. He wanted to crush everything. At this time, Lu Ming had already exchanged more than a dozen blows with the people from Cold Blood Hall. There were more than a dozen people besieging Lu Ming, including several powerful experts. Buzz! Buzz! Bloodlight filled the air as the Cold Blood Hall experts unleashed their bloodlines. 3 of them had level 5 divine bloodline and were at LV3 spirit god realm. They were the strongest and had amazing battle strength. These 3 were the main force against Lu Ming. The rest of them had level 4 and level 3 divine bloodlines. Their cultivation ranged from the 2nd to the 3rd level of the spirit god realm. They were the elites of the Cold Blood Hall and had powerful combat strength. However, Lu Ming could handle them easily. The main force was the 3 experts with level 5 divine bloodline. Chapter 1071. I'll send you to hell. Lu Ming went all out. A drop of blood appeared on top of his head. It was the 3rd bloodline. As the 3rd bloodline appeared, a trace of energy poured into Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's body suddenly exploded with a shocking killing intent. Lu Ming's black hair turned blood red in an instant. His eyes were like blood-red rubies, filled with terrifying murderous intent. Kill! After borrowing a trace of the 3rd bloodline's energy, Lu Ming's strength increased tremendously. He struck out with his palm, and the battle saber in the hands of a level 5 divine bloodline expert with a 3rd-level spirit god shattered. His body exploded after being struck by Lu Ming's palm. Clang! Above his head, the 3rd bloodline twisted and turned into a blood-red battle sword. Lu Ming held it in his hand. His murderous intent grew stronger. The terrifying murderous intent shrouded the dozen or so experts of Cold Blood Hall, making them shudder from head to toe. Swish! With a flash of blood-red light, the blood-red sword cut through the void. Puff! A few domain-enlightened spirit god realm experts were slashed into two by a single sword strike, and they perished successively. This included an expert at the 3rd level of the domain-enlightened spirit god realm who had awakened a 5th-level divine rank bloodline. Ah! The rest of them screamed in fear and frantically retreated to distance themselves from Lu Ming. How could this be? Not far away, Xue Feng, Sanguinarum, and the others' eyes almost popped out when they saw this scene. How could Lu Ming be so terrifying? His combat strength was too shocking. Lu Ming could even kill a level 3 spiritual god expert in seconds. Kill! Lu Ming's eyes were cold, and his killing intent was like a tide. Holding his sword, he charged toward the Cold Blood Hall experts like a killing god. With a swing of his sword, a few more heads flew high into the air. Devour! Then, he clenched his left hand, and the power of devouring erupted. He wanted to devour the blood essence and genuine vitality of the Cold Blood Hall experts. But in the next moment, Lu Ming was surprised. Because he found that there was also a powerful force in the mountain that was devouring the blood of the Cold Blood Hall experts. Lu Ming was a step too late. He only managed to devour a small amount. The mountain devoured most of the blood. What happened? Before Lu Ming could react, banging sounds came from the mountain. The protrusions on the mountain that looked like tree roots suddenly moved. The rocks exploded and turned into vines that shot towards Lu Ming and the others. Suddenly, shrill screams were heard. Some of the Cold Blood Hall members could not dodge in time and were pierced by the vines. Their bodies shriveled at a speed visible to the naked eye. The vines kept wriggling like straws, absorbing the blood. Vampiric Vine. This is the legendary Vampiric Vine. Some disciples of Cold Blood Hall exclaimed.
It's the Vampiric Vine. Lu Ming was also secretly shocked. As it turned out, the protruding vines on the mountain were actually the vines of the Vampiric Vine. Due to the passage of time, the vines were covered with a layer of soil, and the soil had turned into rocks. That was why everyone thought that the vines were rocks. Unexpectedly, it was the Vampiric Vine. The Vampiric Vine was a terrifying creature. It had appeared in ancient times and was almost extinct in modern times. Every time it appeared, it would cause a catastrophe and a storm of blood. This was because the Vampiric Vine could continuously devour blood. As long as it did so, its strength would continue to evolve. It was truly terrifying. Many of the disciples of Cold Blood Hall turned pale with fear. Swoosh! Swoosh! The vines waved in the air, some of them even thicker than a person. They were incomparably huge and charged towards the crowd. The disciples of Cold Blood Hall were constantly killed and their blood sucked dry. Among them, Xue Feng suffered the most attacks. Several thick vines besieged Xue Feng because he had the strongest blood qi. Damn it! A blood leopard appeared above Xue Feng's head. There were 7 golden chakras on its body. Xue Feng had the bloodline of a level 7 divine realm. As he transformed into a blood leopard, his battle strength was astonishing. The blood leopard clawed out with its claws, causing several spatial cracks to appear in the air. Several other vampiric vines were also severely injured. Lu Ming was also attacked by 2 vines. With a slash of his blood-red sword light, one of the vines was chopped off. This vampiric vine has just awakened. Its battle strength is not strong. Let's work together and kill it. Shui Feng shouted. Kill! All the experts of Cold Blood Hall who had awakened their bloodlines unleashed their bloodlines and attacked the vines together. Boom! Boom! Powerful chi blasted out, causing a series of explosions. The blood-red vines exploded one by one and were broken. Some of the chi blasted onto the mountain, causing rocks to fly everywhere. When the rocks on the mountain exploded, everyone was shocked to find that there were hairs under the rocks. There was flesh and blood underneath. That's a demonic beast. At this moment, everyone understood. This tiger-shaped mountain wasn't actually a mountain. It was clearly a gigantic demonic beast in the shape of a tiger. From the looks of it, the tiger-shaped demonic beast and the vampiric vine had fought a great battle. In the end, both sides suffered great losses. The tiger-shaped demonic beast was killed and smashed into the palaces, while the vampiric vine was severely injured and on the verge of death. After a long time, a layer of rock had covered its body, making it look like a mountain peak. But now, stimulated by fresh blood, the vampiric vine had awakened. Go get the jade talisman and leave this place. Shui Feng shouted.
This was a bloodthirsty vine that had lived for who knew how long. After being sealed for so many years, it was still able to awaken. This was too shocking, and it caused the hearts of those who saw it to tremble. Shui Feng had a bad feeling about this. He did not dare to stay any longer. He wanted to get the jade talisman and leave this place as soon as possible. Squeak squeak, at this moment, an ear-piercing sound rang out. Boom! The mountain shook. At the highest point of the mountain, a huge protrusion shook, causing rocks to explode. That was the main body of the vampiric vine. The vampiric vine was about to fully awaken. What moved just now was only its vines. Just like an octopus, only its tentacles moved. Now, the main body was about to awaken. Shui Feng transformed into a blood leopard and pounced, blocking many of the vines. The other Cold Blood Hall disciples rushed toward the jade talisman. Whoosh! Lu Ming chopped down a vine with his sword. He then used the 9 Dragons Heaven stomping step and rushed toward the jade talisman. Die! Shui Feng's blood sword slashed across the sky, cutting a dozen Cold Blood Hall experts in half. Bastard, I'll kill you! Shui Feng roared, his eyes red. So many experts had been killed by Lu Ming. He wanted to vomit blood. Unfortunately, he was facing a pile of rattan alone and couldn't get away at all. Today, it's your Cold Blood Hall who will die. Lu Ming said coldly. He charged forward and killed a few more people. Damn you, Lu Shaoqing! In front, Sanguinarium was terrified. He gritted his teeth and rushed toward the jade talisman. He was only a few dozen meters away from the jade talisman. But at this moment, a few vines rushed out from the ground and whipped toward him. Damn it! He roared angrily. He was blocked. Bam! Bam! Rocks exploded. More vines appeared around the jade talisman, blocking all the Cold Blood Hall experts. Lu Ming, give me the jade talisman. Dandan transmitted to Lu Ming. Okay. Lu Ming grabbed Dandan and threw it toward the jade talisman. Lu Ming stared at Sanguinarium. Chapter 1072. Damn it! Stop him! Sanguinarium was shocked. He quickly retreated and hid behind the other Cold Blood Hall experts. Lu Ming dashed forward and swept his battle sword. The experts of Cold Blood Hall were killed one by one. Of course, not all of them were in the spiritual embryo realm. Many of them were in the spiritual embryo realm. They could not stop Lu Ming at all. Lu Ming appeared in front of Shui Luozi in an instant. No! No! Sanguinarium shouted. He wanted to escape, but Lu Ming's sword cut Sanguinarium in half. Lu Ming frowned. He saw a ball of white light wrapped around Sanguinarium's body and flew into the sky. In the next moment, Sanguinarum's body reformed. He was not dead, but his eyes were full of resentment. Lu Shaoqing, Cold Blood Hall will not let you go. With a loud roar, Shueluozi disappeared in a flash of white light. Life Talisman. Lu Ming whispered. He had heard that the strongest geniuses of the various forces had life talismans of the Saint Mansion. Even if they died, they could be resurrected outside. It seemed to be true. Amazing. Lu Ming sighed. The life talisman had merged with the rules of heaven and earth of this secret realm. As long as one wore the life talisman, they could not be killed. Lu Ming felt that it was a pity. However, the others from Cold Blood Hall did not receive such treatment. If they died, they would die for real. Dandan rushed toward the jade talisman. At least a dozen vines whipped at it. Dandan stepped on the void and an inscription formation appeared. Its body flashed in the air and avoided the vines. It rushed past them and appeared in front of the jade talisman. It grabbed the jade talisman and stuffed it into its mouth. Let's go, we got it. Dandan yelled and ran forward like a madwoman. Squeak squeak squeak, at this moment, an ear-piercing sound resounded through the air. Rocks and boulders exploded as the main body of the vampiric vine woke up and let out an enraged roar. It was something that looked like a tree bump. It looked like a bunch of tree roots, and countless vines extended from it. Countless vines danced and howled. In an instant, dozens of Cold Blood Hall disciples in the spirit embryo realm were killed by the vines and their blood was devoured. After devouring the blood, the vampiric vine's aura grew even stronger. Let's go, let's go. Shui Feng roared and waved his claws, breaking several vines as he rushed forward. The remaining Cold Blood Hall disciples also fled for their lives. The Dandan was extremely agile. Its inscriptions shone, and the vines could not catch it. Lu Ming stepped into the air and flew towards Dandan. Whoosh! Dandan jumped onto Lu Ming's shoulder and shouted, "Let's go, let's go." That was because the vampiric vine had locked onto them and was chasing after Lu Ming. Lu Ming used the 9 Dragons' Heaven stomping steps and was astonishingly fast. With a flash of light, he disappeared into the distance. In all directions, the people from the small forces and the remaining Cold Blood Hall experts took the opportunity to flee. After running for tens of thousands of miles, the people of Cold Blood Hall rushed out of the area covered by the light shield. Without the suppression of the light shield, their speed skyrocketed. They turned into streaks of bloody light and disappeared. They only stopped after rushing for tens of thousands of miles. Then, they looked at each other. Lu Shaoqing, damn you. Shui Feng almost vomited blood as he roared with red eyes. Tragic, too tragic. Hundreds of people from Cold Blood Hall had entered, but now, there were less than 100 left. At least 200 people had died. Most of them were at the spirit embryo realm, but there were many domain enlightened spirit god realm experts as well. Most importantly, almost all of the 10 strongest people in the younger generation of Cold Blood Hall were dead. Only 2 of them were left, and Sanguinarum was still alive due to the protection of the life talisman. It was too tragic. The losses were incomparably heavy. Among them, there were more than a dozen spirit god experts killed by Lu Ming. Even the overlords did not have many spirit god experts. More than half of Cold Blood Hall's geniuses from the previous generation were killed by Lu Ming. Lu Shaoqing, if I don't kill you, I swear I'm not human. Shui Feng roared, his voice echoing for hundreds of miles. Lu Ming sprinted madly. Tens of thousands of miles later, he was finally out of the range of the light barrier. His speed had increased tremendously, but behind him, the vampiric vine was still chasing after him. Lu Ming spared no effort and flew for hundreds of thousands of miles before he managed to shake off the vampiric vine. This guy is really difficult to deal with. After finding a secluded place, Lu Ming entered the mountain river diagram. He took a deep breath and began to refine the energy of the blood essence that he had devoured. World Academy, outside the jade wall of all. Suddenly, the space trembled and a ray of light flashed. Sanguinarum's body appeared. Instantly, everyone's eyes fell on Sanguinarum. Sanguinarum was dead. Everyone knew that Sanguinarum had died in the battle. He had only survived because of the life charm. He was the first genius who had died in battle with a life charm. Sanguinarum, what happened? Asked an elder from Cold Blood Hall. He was a supreme master from Cold Blood Hall. The others also looked at Sanguinarum curiously. They were curious about what had happened. Sanguinarum had died in battle. Lu Shaoqing, it's Lu Shaoqing, Sanguinarum roared bitterly and then briefly explained what had happened. What? It's that weakling. After hearing this, everyone was shocked. Many people were dumbfounded. Lu Ming had attracted a lot of attention when he passed the Heavenly Market Cave. However, Lu Ming's results in the later selection were too poor. Many people thought that Lu Ming was just a weakling who had passed the Heavenly Market Cave by luck. However, after hearing Sanguinarum's story, many people were scared. How was he a weakling? He was clearly a killing god, an Asura. That guy was just pretending to be weak. That's right. He's too despicable. He must have hidden his strength. I've heard of Lu Shaoqing. He appeared in Pill City before. That time, he defeated Sanguinarum. He's a genius who came out of nowhere. Ha, Cold Blood Hall has suffered a great loss this time. They actually chose a killing god to go in with them. Many people discussed loudly. Some of the overlords were not afraid of Cold Blood Hall at all. They looked at Cold Blood Hall with contempt, such as Sky Eagle Castle and Floating Mountain. Cold Blood Hall's people were so angry that their lungs hurt and they had the urge to vomit blood. Sanguinarum, in particular, was so angry that his stomach hurt. This was because he was the one who had chosen Lu Ming. Lu Ming had dared to not give up the quota for the marrow cleansing pool to him and even mocked him. He had planned to make Lu Ming regret in the Saint Mansion's secret realm. He never expected that he would bring a killing god with him. If not for Lu Ming, they would not have been so miserable facing the bloodthirsty vines. He had only himself to blame. I hope Xue Feng can kill that bastard. Cold Blood Hall's people secretly gritted their teeth, hoping that Xue Feng could kill Lu Ming. In the Saint Mansion's secret realm, Lu Ming was refining the essence blood with all his might. After a few hours, the essence blood's energy was completely refined. Lu Ming's cultivation increased rapidly, reaching the peak of first-level spirit god in one go. However, his bloodline did not improve. Now that both of Lu Ming's bloodlines were at level 7 divine level, it was very difficult to improve them. He needed a huge amount of essence blood. It's a pity that a large part of the blood essence has been devoured by the bloodthirsty vines. Otherwise, with so many experts' energy, it would be enough for me to break through to second-level spirit god. Lu Ming felt that it was a pity. It's still not safe here. The bloodthirsty vines are ancient evil creatures. Once they're born, they'll go berserk and their strength will skyrocket. I'd better stay away from them first. After leaving the mountain river diagram, Lu Ming flew into the distance. Chapter 1073. Lu Ming stopped at this point. He was far enough away that the vampiric vine shouldn't be able to catch up to him. Dandan, what kind of treasure is that jade talisman? Lu Ming asked Dandan curiously. Take a look for yourself. Dandan opened his mouth, and the jade talisman flew out. Lu Ming caught it. Dandan wasn't interested in anything that wasn't related to spiritual herbs. Dandan, your strength has improved a lot recently. Lu Ming said. Dandan was able to snatch the jade talisman from the vampiric vine and escape with ease. Lu Ming was very curious about its strength. Of course. That's why I asked you to give me more spiritual herbs. Also, I swallowed some lightning tribulation when you were transcending your tribulation. That thing is very nourishing and helped me recover a lot. Dandan said proudly. Heavenly tribulation is very nourishing. Lu Ming was speechless. This guy was really mysterious. When the lightning cauldron was transcending its tribulation, this guy swallowed the heavenly tribulation in one gulp. At that time, it was still an egg. How is it? Have you been subdued by my godly might? Follow me and serve me well in the future. You'll have a good life ahead of you. Dandan said proudly. It had already started to feel complacent. Go in. Lu Ming grabbed Dandan and stuffed him into the mountain river diagram. Then, he looked at the jade talisman in his hand and scanned it with his spiritual sense. After breaking through to the spirit god realm and condensing a spirit god, one would be able to develop spiritual sense. It was more useful than the eyes and could sense everything. In the next moment, Lu Ming's face lit up with joy. The 9 seals of the divine gate is a type of sealing technique. It's a powerful secret technique. Lu Ming muttered to himself. The more he comprehended it, the more surprised he became. The 9 seals of the divine gate was a technique that could be used to condense the door of sealing and seal the opponent. When cultivated to a high level, it was said to be able to seal the heavens, earth, people, and everything. It was extremely terrifying. Amazing, too amazing. The more Lu Ming comprehended, the more amazed he became. He discovered the power of the divine gate 9 seals. This was a terrifying secret technique that had been left behind by an emperor in the Saint Mansion's secret realm countless years ago. It had been lost in the outside world for countless years. Lu Ming simply found a hidden place and entered the mountain and river diagram. He sat cross-legged under the tree of enlightenment and carefully comprehended. Now, the Tao Comprehension ancient tree already produced 3 leaves, becoming more and more unordinary. Great Tao aura curled up around it. When one sat on the side, they could enter an ethereal state. Lu Ming was completely focused on comprehending the 9 seals of the God Gate. Gradually, a mysterious light began to emanate from his body. As time passed, the light began to condense, transforming into a glowing door. It was like a door leading to the eternal unknown. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Whoosh! Whoosh! Suddenly, Lu Ming's hands formed a series of hand seals at extreme speed. A light gate condensed and flew towards Dandan. The light gate shone brightly, enveloping Dandan within. Nestling, what are you doing? Dandan's limbs flailed wildly as if it was being suppressed. Only when Dandan's body glowed brightly and inscribed various formations did it manage to escape. Not bad. Lu Ming smiled. Even the vampiric vine couldn't stop Dandan from escaping. Its ability to escape was unfathomable and slippery. However, even Dandan was careless and was suppressed by the gate of sealing for a moment. Lu Ming was very satisfied with the power of the gate of sealing. If it were anyone else, they would definitely be suppressed by the gate of sealing. In a battle between experts, even if one was sealed for a moment, it could determine life and death. Moreover, as Lu Ming's cultivation increased, the power of the gate of sealing would also increase. It could be used as one of Lu Ming's trump cards. Especially since Lu Ming had just started cultivating, he could only cultivate 1 gate of sealing. The 9 seals of the God Gate, when cultivated to the highest level, could cultivate 9 gates of sealing. That was truly terrifying. With each additional gate of sealing, the power of the gate of sealing would multiply. I've already wasted 3 days. I can't waste any more time. It's rare for me to enter the Saint Mansion's secret realm. I can't waste it. With a thought, Lu Ming came out of the mountain river map. He randomly chose a direction and flew forward. Dandan also climbed onto Lu Ming's shoulder and looked around for spiritual herbs. Roar! On a mountain peak in front of him, a giant wolf appeared. It was as big as a mountain, and its entire body was silvery white. It raised its head and howled, causing the entire mountain range to shake violently. So powerful. Lu Ming's expression changed drastically. He retracted his aura and landed on a mountain range below to observe from afar. Rumble. Suddenly, the mountain range below Lu Ming's feet moved violently, and then it floated in the air and flew toward the giant wolf. Nestle. Lu Ming realized that the mountain range below his feet was not a mountain range, but a giant snake. The giant snake was as big as a mountain, and its body was covered with mud, rocks, and trees. It lay there motionlessly like a mountain range. Titan giant snake, no, even if it's not a pure-blooded Titan giant snake, it's close. Lu Ming wailed and hurriedly flew to the side. Fortunately, the giant snake only had eyes for the giant silver wolf and did not pay attention to Lu Ming. Roar! The giant silver wolf roared, and with a stomp of its foot, the mountain peak below it shattered. Its huge body pounced on the giant snake. The two behemoths fought fiercely, and for a moment, heaven and earth shook, and the mountain peaks shattered. What a powerful vicious beast! This is definitely not a force from the outside world, but a powerful vicious beast born and bred in the Saint Mansion's secret realm. Lu Ming avoided them from afar, not daring to get close. These two beasts were definitely at the high-level spiritual god realm, and they were extremely terrifying. This secret realm is very dangerous. Previously, I encountered the bloodthirsty vine, and now, I have to be careful. Lu Ming concealed his aura and flew carefully. Not long after, he saw a few saber marks on a cliff. He carefully sensed them and found that they were left by a peerless expert. If a saber practitioner carefully comprehended them, they would definitely be enlightened. Rumor has it that 30,000 years ago, a supreme expert came here to cultivate. These saber marks are probably left behind by an expert who comprehended something during his cultivation. Lu Ming guessed. If so, there would be many such marks in the secret realm. If he could find the right one, it would be a great opportunity. Lu Ming did not stay long because he did not practice saber, and the marks did not fit him. Along the way, he found many spiritual herbs. Lu Ming only kept a few and gave the rest to Dandan. There's someone ahead. A day later, Lu Ming saw a figure flying in front of him. It was not someone from Cold Blood Hall, but someone from another force. When entering the Saint Mansion's secret realm, there were 9 light pillars that entered 9 different areas. However, these 9 areas were connected and were all in the same secret realm. The major forces began to enter separately to avoid disputes. However, as time passed, the people in the 9 areas would definitely encounter each other. Lu Ming guessed that he had already arrived at another area. Lu Ming flew forward and saw many people gathered under a stone wall, carefully observing and comprehending. Chapter 1074. Lu Ming pondered for a while and realized that it was not useful to him. Just as he was about to leave. Get lost. Suddenly, a loud roar could be heard. A young man in white with a long sword on his back came from the sky. A terrifying sword aura emanated from his body and pressed down on the crowd. Wu Tsang. Sky Martial Sword Faction, Wu Tsang. Many people were shocked. Sky Martial Sword Faction was extremely prosperous. It was one of the top factions in the Middle Continent. Not many factions could compare to it. In this generation, the Sky Martial Sword sect was also filled with geniuses. Just in terms of grade 2 geniuses alone, there were already 2 of them. Wu Qingkong and Wu Tsang. Wu Qingkong was the number 1 elite of Sky Martial Sword faction, while Wu Tsang was ranked 2nd. Although he was ranked 2nd, he was as strong as Yin Bupo and Jun Yu. With 2 elite elites in this generation, Sky Martial Sword faction's reputation was at its peak. Get lost. I want this place. Wu Tsang looked down from above. Many people gritted their teeth. This place was huge. Wu Tsang could have chosen a place to comprehend, but he chased them away. Although they were angry, they did not dare to voice it out. They could only leave. Many people had gained some insights, but they had no choice but to stop and leave this place. You're still not leaving? Wutsang looked at Lu Ming with a piercing gaze. Lu Ming looked calm. He glanced at Wutsang and left. This place was useless to him. He had already planned to leave, so there was no need to fight with Wutsang. Sky Martial Sword faction is really overbearing. Keep it down. Many elites have entered Sky Martial Sword faction. The previous generation's #1 elite is also here. Although his talent is not as good as Wutsang and Wu Qingkong, he has cultivated for more than 10 years. His combat strength is terrifying. We'd better not offend them. Some people discussed in low voices as they left the place. Lu Ming headed north and soon appeared 10,000 miles away. Caw! A bird's cry resounded through the sky. A huge eagle soared through the sky, covering the sky and covering the sun. What a powerful aura! This was also a powerful beast. It was the overlord of this secret realm. The giant eagle flew to a cliff in front of them and landed. Lu Ming realized that there was a nest on the cliff. That is, from a distance, Lu Ming discovered that there was a strange aura on the cliff. There were vague marks on it that looked like a human figure. There are traces left behind by supreme experts. I wonder if they will be of any use to me. Lu Ming carefully approached the eagle's nest and waited patiently. This wait lasted for an entire day. The next day, the giant eagle let out a long cry, spread its wings, and flew away from its nest. After the giant eagle left, Lu Ming rushed down the cliff to take a closer look. There was really a figure carved on the cliff. This figure seemed to be launching an attack. Boom! Boom! Upon closer inspection, the figure seemed to have moved. A terrifying killing intent exploded out, enveloping Lu Ming. Kill! With an explosive roar, that figure sent a palm strike towards Lu Ming. A terrifying killing intent enveloped Lu Ming, causing his entire body to turn cold. He couldn't even muster up the will to resist. The palm strike directly landed on his body. Lu Ming was shocked. He took several steps back, only to realize that everything was an illusion. So powerful. Lu Ming let out a long breath. He was a little shocked, but also a little excited. This was a martial technique that was extremely powerful. It contained killing intent and could even affect one's mind. Lu Ming activated his third bloodline and could borrow the powerful slaughter intent. This martial technique was just right for Lu Ming. Let's try to comprehend it here and see if I can comprehend this martial technique. Lu Ming stepped forward and observed carefully. Lu Ming guarded his heart and remained motionless. Whoosh! This time, it wasn't a palm strike. A sword appeared in the figure's hand, and it slashed out. Lu Ming remained motionless, allowing the battle sword to slash past him. As expected, the battle sword was like an illusion. After slashing past, the figure executed another move. This time, it turned into a saber. Whoosh! Whoosh! This figure moved freely, executing all kinds of attacks. The weapon in its hand was also unpredictable. What a mysterious martial technique. Lu Ming looked at it for a while and finally figured out something. This martial technique didn't have a fixed move. In other words, the move was only the surface. The key was the intent. Once one comprehended the intent of this martial technique, any weapon would be able to unleash great power. This was a killing move that was specially created to kill people. Its power was extremely strong. Lu Ming sat cross-legged in the air, carefully comprehending and studying. In the evening, a cry resounded in the sky. The giant eagle had returned. Lu Ming left and sat cross-legged not far away to continue comprehending. After the giant eagle left the next day, Lu Ming returned to the cliff and continued to comprehend. Brat, get lost! Suddenly, a loud roar was heard, interrupting Lu Ming's comprehension. Lu Ming's eyes flashed coldly as he turned around. Wutsang, it was that person again. Now, he had his eyes on this cliff. Get lost! A cold shout came from Lu Ming. Wutsang was stunned. He obviously didn't expect Lu Ming to tell him to get lost. Then, Wutsang's eyes revealed a trace of killing intent as he stared at Lu Ming. Brat, do you know who you are talking to? If you say the wrong thing, you will pay with your life. Get lost. Lu Ming's voice was even colder when he said the second word. You are courting death. Wutsang shouted coldly as his sword chi surged. He slashed out with his palm and a terrifying sword radiance slashed down at Lu Ming. Lu Ming casually waved his hand and deflected the sword radiance. He got up and stepped towards Wutsang. You have some skills, but you are wrong to be so arrogant in front of me. Wutsang shouted as he unsheathed his sword. The sword's cry shook the sky. Swoosh! The sword cut through the void, creating a terrifying crack in space. Roar roar roar, a dragon's roar came from Lu Ming's body as the dragon power erupted. Lu Ming's body was covered in purple light. With a palm strike, Wutsang's sword chi was shattered. Lu Ming didn't stop and continued towards Wutsang. Wutsang was shocked and in disbelief. Lu Ming's combat strength was far beyond his imagination. Where did this expert come from? Without time to think, Wutsang quickly retreated. A bloodline sword appeared above his head. It was a level 8 divine grade bloodline. He performed bloodline fusion and turned into a battle sword. He slashed out a shocking sword radiance, wanting to split Lu Ming in half. Clang! Lu Ming clenched his fist and activated the suppressing hell skill. He struck out with a terrifying force on the sword radiance. The battle sword shook violently and almost collapsed as it was sent flying far away. Swoosh! Lu Ming stepped forward and threw out a punch. The battle sword shook violently and was sent flying tens of thousands of meters away, splitting 2 mountains. Run, run! Wutsang was horrified. He controlled the battle sword and turned to run. Lu Ming stepped into the air and chased after Wutsang. Wutsang turned into a sword radiance and flew out a few hundred miles in an instant. However, Lu Ming was even faster. Wutsang was almost scared out of his wits. Stop! I am a disciple of the Sky Martial Sword sect. If you dare to attack me again, you will be an enemy of the Sky Martial Sword sect. Chapter 1075. Lu Ming sneered and continued to step forward. He clenched his fist and punched out. There was no doubt that Lu Ming had unleashed the power of 7 dragons and activated the heaven-suppressing art. Coupled with the 5-color concept, his power was terrifying. Clang! Another punch landed on the sword. This time, Wutsang could not resist it anymore. The sword exploded, revealing his true body. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fled frantically. Oh my god, who is that? It looks like Wutsang. Yes, it's him. He's actually running away and being chased. Who's so powerful? To be able to chase after Wutsang. Isn't that the weakling? He's chasing after Wutsang. He's so terrifying. He just defeated Wutsang's bloodline fusion with 1 punch. What weakling? He's clearly a rare genius with unparalleled combat strength. He's too strong. No wonder he could pass the Heavenly Market Cave. Not far away, 5 or 6 people passed by. When they saw this scene, they were dumbfounded. Wutsang did not know Lu Ming because he was not there when he went through the Heavenly Market Cave. He only arrived after the secret manual of the Saint's Mansion was opened. However, those who passed by recognized Lu Ming. Back then, they also thought that Lu Ming was lucky to pass the Heavenly Market Cave. Now, they were really shocked and thought that they were dreaming. Lu Ming used the 9 dragon sky-stomping steps and was astonishingly fast. He caught up with Wutsang in a few moments and punched out again. No! Wutsang roared and tried his best to resist, but half of his body was still shattered by the punch. Bang! Then, Lu Ming stomped his foot. Wutsang screamed and was torn into pieces. Another second-class prodigy had been killed. However, just like Shueluozi, after Wutsang was killed, another ray of white light shrouded him. Not far away, his body actually condensed again. He gave Lu Ming a resentful look, then with a tremor, he disappeared without a trace. Life talismans again. Lu Ming frowned. These second-class geniuses all had the potential to become rulers. The major forces valued them very much and spent a lot of money to buy life talismans from the World Academy. Almost all the second-class prodigies had one. Second-class geniuses were too important. There was hope for them to become rulers. An Emperor realm expert could make a force become an overlord force, allowing it to prosper for 10,000 to 20,000 years. Compared to a supreme being, who knew how many times more important. What these overlord powers hoped for the most was to have a successor. If there was no successor and no new emperor was born, then the overlord power would quickly weaken. For example, the Medicine King Valley and the Talisman Puppet Sect. In the history of the Divine Wilderness, there had been countless overlord factions, but how many of them had been able to prosper and pass down their legacies? Very few. Many overlord forces eventually weakened because there were no emperors among the later generations. One could imagine how highly those overlord forces valued second-class geniuses. In the distance, the few of them sucked in a breath of cold air and broke out in cold sweat. Lu Ming was too ruthless. A second-grade genius was killed just like that. Fortunately, they had the life talisman. Otherwise, the Sky Martial Sword sect would go crazy. Lu Ming glanced at the few of them and ignored them. He returned to the cliff and continued to comprehend the killing move. The World Academy. Outside the Universe Jade Annulus, it was still crowded with people. High up in the sky, the Supreme sat cross-legged and waited silently. Buzz! Suddenly, a white light flashed and Wutsang appeared. Everyone's eyes turned to look at him. Wutsang, it's Wutsang. He was killed. What danger did he encounter? It seems like the secret realm is really dangerous. I wonder how many of those without life talismans died. Danger comes with opportunity. It's worth it if you can get something out of it. Many people looked at Wutsang and discussed. Wutsang, what happened? High up in the sky, one of the Sky Martial Sword Sect's Supremes asked. Since the Supremes asked, Wutsang did not dare to ignore them. A dark-skinned young man. He looked simple and honest, but he was extremely cunning. Wutsang did not know Lu Ming's name, so he described Lu Ming's appearance. What? Wasn't this the appearance of that trash Lu Shaoqing? It's him again. He's really a killing god. First, he killed many experts from Cold Blood Hall, Sanguinarum, and now he killed Wutsang. He's really terrifying. He killed so many geniuses consecutively. His battle strength is amazing. I'm afraid he's one of the top second-class geniuses. Many people exclaimed. Those from Cold Blood Hall looked gloomy. Sanguinarum gritted his teeth and looked terrible. Why did they have to drag them into it? On the cliff in the Saint Mansion's secret realm, Lu Ming was carefully comprehending. Every time the giant eagle returned, he would leave. The next day, when the giant eagle went out to look for food, he would go and comprehend. After 5 consecutive days, he gained a lot. This mark was not complete. It was just a kind of intent. Lu Ming comprehended 5 killing moves from this intent. Lu Ming named them the 5 killing moves. The 5 killing moves did not have a specific move. It was just a way to use the slaughter essence. In other words, without the slaughter essence, it was useless. However, when Lu Ming borrowed the power of the 3rd bloodline, he could borrow the slaughter essence. Thus, the 5 killing moves came in handy. Previously, when Lu Ming borrowed the power of the 3rd bloodline, it was just pure strength. With the 5 killing moves, it would undoubtedly be more powerful. Almost there. 5 days later, Lu Ming got up and left. This mark was not complete. Even if he continued to comprehend, he would not gain much. Lu Ming left and continued to look for opportunities. One day later, Lu Ming came to a lush mountain range. Hey, why are all the spiritual herbs along the way emptied out? Which bastard did this? Dandan ran around like a gust of wind, cursing. In this mountain range, the spirit chi was very dense. Ancient trees towered into the sky. Along the way, Dandan found dozens of pits left behind by the spiritual herbs. According to Dandan's speculation, they were all left behind by level 8 spiritual herbs. He was angry that someone had gotten to them first. They are too clean. Not even a hair is left. Dandan sighed. Lu Ming was also speechless. They had changed several positions in this mountain range, but it was still the same. There is someone in front. Suddenly, Dandan stared and climbed onto Lu Ming's shoulder. Lu Ming restrained his aura and moved forward carefully. In front of him, a figure in white clothes was walking in the air, flashing in the mountain forest. From the back, he looked very young. However, he was bald, and the top of his head was smooth and round. His movement technique was extremely fast. Like a gust of wind, he appeared in front of a spiritual herb. My hair, good, good. The bald man murmured and then waved his sleeve. The spiritual herb left the ground and was kept by him. Could it be a Western Desert holy monk? Lu Ming was surprised. Legend had it that the Western Desert was different from other places. They cultivated Buddhism. The entire Western Desert mainly cultivated Buddhism, and there were many ancient temples. Judging from the bald man's clothes and the Buddhist chants, he was clearly a Western Desert holy monk. After keeping the spiritual herb, the Western Desert holy monk continued forward. Not long after, he came to a dark underground cave and observed carefully. Chapter 1076. In the Western Desert holy monk's hand, a round plate emitted a beam of purple light that shot into the sky. It was so shocking that it could be seen even from far away. After a while, the Western Desert holy monk put away the round plate and the beam of light disappeared. That was because there were streaks of rainbow light flashing in the distance. Someone was attracted. What is that guy trying to do? Lu Ming was hiding not far away. He had seen everything. The Western Desert holy monk put away the round plate and returned to the dark cave. He shouted, "The treasure in this cave is mine." After shouting, his figure flashed and he quickly left the cave. Soon, more than a dozen streaks of rainbow light flew over, revealing more than a dozen figures. The treasure is in the cave. Kill. We can't let others beat us to it. Get lost. It's mine. More than a dozen experts rushed into the cave. Roar. 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 In the cave, the roars of beasts were heard. The entire ground was shaking as a fierce fight broke out in the cave. That guy is using someone else to do his dirty work. Lu Ming was dumbfounded. Didn't they say that the Western Desert holy monks were kind-hearted and would help all living beings? That guy was too unreliable. Could he be a fake? I have hair, I have no hair. Buddha is merciful. That guy chanted again. In a flash, he didn't enter the cave but went in another direction. That guy is very mysterious. Let's follow him. Lu Ming quietly followed the Western Desert holy monk and came to a place dozens of miles away. There was a huge cave in that place. At that moment, Lu Ming heard a loud roar coming from the cave and then it gradually faded away. Lu Ming was dumbfounded. He finally understood that guy's motive. This cave was connected to the other cave dozens of miles away. This guy from the Western Desert was using someone else's cave to lure the ferocious beasts away. Then, he could easily enter this cave and search for treasures. That wasn't a merciful holy monk. He was clearly an unscrupulous monk. That monk looked around furtively. Only then did Lu Ming see his face. She had a baby face and was slightly chubby. Her skin was so smooth that it would make women jealous. Her skin was pink and tender, and she looked harmless to humans and animals. He looked around, then chanted the name of Buddha and rushed into the cave. This guy is really not a good person. On his shoulder, Dandan looked at him with disdain. Lu Ming curled his lips and thought, "You're about the same as him. There must be treasures in this cave. Let's go in and take a look." Lu Ming also carefully rushed into the cave. The cave was very large. After a few thousand meters, it became even more spacious, like a huge underground cavern. Faint rumbling sounds could be heard from the front. It was clear that the battle was extremely intense. Next, I saw a few pits. There must have been some spiritual herbs growing there, but they were all dug up by that monk. What a pity! Dandan lamented. As the two of them continued forward, they realized that the underground caverns were crisscrossing. They could no longer see the monk's shadow. Lu Ming walked forward casually. Suddenly, he stopped as a purple light attracted his attention. On one of the walls, a hazy purple light was emitted. It was hazy and beautiful. Lu Ming channeled his true yuan and wiped away the rocks on the surface. A longan-sized purple crystal appeared. This is a purple flame crystal. Lu Ming was shocked, but he was overjoyed. Purple flame crystal was a precious material that was rarely seen in the world. It could be used to refine weapons or pills. It was priceless. Most importantly, purple flame crystal was one of the most important main materials for refining nirvana pills. It was a level 9 material. Lu Ming did not expect to find a purple flame crystal here. He immediately condensed his true yuan into a blade and dug out the surrounding rocks to dig out the purple flame crystal. So heavy. The longan-sized purple flame crystal weighed more than 10,000 kilograms. It was really shocking. I wonder if there are more. After Lu Ming put away the purple flame crystal, he looked around carefully. It would be great if he could find a few pieces here. Although nirvana pills were not very useful to Lu Ming, they were very useful to others. If Fatty Kong Jean had nirvana pills, he could even raise his third bloodline to level 9 divine grade. There were also his parents and disciples. In the future, when he met Xian Yanqing, Mulins, and the others, they would all be very useful. If there was a chance, Lu Ming wanted to collect the materials and refine a few cauldrons. After walking around for a while, Lu Ming discovered something else. There was purple light emitting from one of the walls. Just as Lu Ming was about to dig, a terrifying gust of wind attacked Lu Ming. Lu Ming was shocked. He turned around and threw out a palm strike. Bang! A terrifying force surged towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming could not help but take a few steps back. What a powerful force! Lu Ming was secretly shocked. Although he did not release his dragon force earlier, his vital essence was extremely strong. Coupled with the 5 types of intense and the hell-suppressing heaven skill, an ordinary martial artist at the 2nd level of spirit god would be killed by him with one palm strike. But now, he was forced to retreat. My hair. A Buddhist chant was heard. A harmless face appeared in front of Lu Ming. It was the monk. He looked very young, in his 20s. He squinted his eyes and smiled. He put his palms together and said, "Benefactor, the ferocious beasts in this cave were lured away by my friends. It's not good for you to take advantage of them like this, right?" Even though he was talking, the monk was still smiling. Lu Ming and Dandan looked at him with disdain. Those people were obviously tricked by the monk. But in the monk's mouth, they became his friends. How shameless! Master, everyone has a share. I saw what you did just now. If this spreads out, I'm afraid it won't be good for the reputation of the Western Desert Holy Monk. Lu Ming said with a smile. My hair. My Buddha is merciful. I think you've misunderstood. Monks are merciful, the baby-faced monk chanted a Buddhist chant. Roar. Before the monk could finish, a loud roar was heard. A huge lizard shining with purple flames pounced towards the monk. Buzz. A golden light shone from the monk's body. He threw out a palm and a huge golden palm print hit the purple lizard. With a boom, the lizard was shattered into pieces. Merciful? Lu Ming was tongue-tied. My hair. My Buddha is merciful. The monk chanted a Buddhist chant again. He looked at Lu Ming and said, Benefactor, I've taken a liking to this purple flame crystal. Why don't you give it to me? What if I don't? Lu Ming said. My hair. My Buddha, hair your sister. I know you don't have hair. Lu Ming shouted and suddenly attacked. The dragon force in his body erupted and his strength increased. He threw a punch at Monk Wuliang. Monk Wuliang's body shone brightly. The dazzling golden light spread, making Monk Wuliang look like the reincarnation of Buddha. In addition, he had a harmless face. If Lu Ming had not seen him secretly, he would have thought that he was an enlightened monk. Boom! Chapter 1077. Boom! A terrifying explosion resounded as energy shot out in all directions. The underground cave shook violently. The rock of this underground cave was extremely hard. Perhaps it was because of the strong beasts living here. If it was an ordinary cave, it would have exploded. Even so, the entire underground cave was shaking violently. Bam! Bam! After one move, Lu Ming's body trembled as he retreated a few steps. So strong. This monk's strength is actually so terrifying. Lu Ming was shocked. At this moment, he had already unleashed his dragon force, but he was still pushed back by the other party. The golden palm print was shockingly powerful, as though it could suppress everything. It was on par with the suppressing hell skill. Lu Ming was shocked. Unscrupulous monk was also surprised. He did not expect Lu Ming to be able to receive his palm without being injured. Roar! Roar! The shaking here attracted the attention of the beasts on the other side. Loud roars could be heard. Clearly, some beasts were charging over. I have hair. Benefactor, you are so strong. This purple flame crystal can be yours. This little monk will take his leave. Unscrupulous monk chanted Buddha's name and left with his sleeves fluttering. The western desert is indeed unfathomable. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. Since ancient times, the western desert had always been the territory of Buddhism. It had always been mysterious and powerful. Many people said that the western desert was second only to the central continent among the 5 major territories in the divine wilderness. Roar! 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 The thunderous roars caused the underground cave to rumble. Lu Ming did not think too much about it. He dug out the purple flame crystal and left the place in a flash. Next, Lu Ming walked around the underground cave for a while, but he did not find a third purple flame crystal. Instead, he found a few purple giant lizards, which were killed by Lu Ming. However, there was obviously a nest of giant lizards in this underground cave. Some of them were very strong. Lu Ming did not stay for long. After a while, he left the cave and flew into the distance. Hoo hoo, a gust of wind blew past. Lu Ming smiled. After obtaining 2 purple flame crystals, Lu Ming was in a good mood. There were 7 main ingredients for refining the nirvana pill. Each of them was extremely precious and rarely appeared in the outside world. Now that he had obtained one, it could be considered an opportunity. Naturally, Lu Ming was in a good mood. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded. Up ahead, sword energy rushed into the heavens. Inscriptions flickered, and space was torn apart. There were people fighting an intense battle. Lu Ming flew over at an extremely fast speed. Using the water concept, he condensed a cloud of mist and hid within it to watch. There were a total of 4 people in the battle, and Lu Ming was quite familiar with a few of them. Sandalwood Fairy, Kong Xian, the genius of the World Academy, and Wu Qingkong of the Celestial Martial Sword Sect. Lastly, there was a burly man in his 40s who was no weaker than Wu Qingkong. The 4 of them were in a chaotic battle. However, it was clear that Sandalwood Fairy and Kong Xian were working together. The 2 of them were fighting against Wu Qingkong and the muscular man. The battle was extremely intense. That is, at this time, Lu Ming discovered that there was a small lake below. The lake water was clear, and in the lake, there were 3 carps swimming around. The 3 carps shone with golden light, and their bodies glowed with light. Sometimes they gathered, sometimes they scattered, and when they did, they looked like a true dragon. Dragon carp, it's actually a dragon carp. Lu Ming was shocked. Dragon carps were also a kind of supreme treasure. It was said that they were the descendants of true dragons and had the blood of true dragons in their bodies. When used to refine elixirs, they were a rare treasure medicine. Its value was even higher than that of purple flame crystals. Coincidentally, one of the 7 main ingredients for refining nirvana elixirs was the blood of dragon carps. You want to compete with me? You're courting death. The dragon carps are mine. Wu Qingkong shouted, his murderous intent surging. Wu Qingkong, don't be too overbearing. There are 3 dragon carps. How about 1 for each of us? Sandalwood Fairy spoke. 1 for each of us. Are you qualified? All 3 of them are mine. Wu Qingkong sneered. His sword energy whistled, and cracks appeared in the space. It was extremely terrifying. The other muscular man did not speak. His body emitted a white light as he waved his hand. A sky-covering palm appeared, tearing the heavens and the earth apart. This is the great sky-splitting palm. This person should be an expert from the Ji family, an overlord force. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Among the 3 parties, Wu Qingkong's combat strength was astonishing. The muscular man from the Ji family had a profound cultivation and was not weak either. However, when Sandalwood Fairy and Kong Xian joined forces, their combat strength was terrifying. They were not weaker than the others. It was difficult to determine the outcome of the battle in a short period of time. Lu Ming smiled. He suddenly unleashed the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps and dashed toward the surface of the lake. In an instant, he appeared above the surface of the lake. With a grab, a huge vital essence hand appeared and grabbed toward the 3 dragon carps. Who is it? You're courting death. At this moment, the people in the air were shocked. Wu Qingkong even roared in anger. The 3 dragon carps were about to fall into Lu Ming's hand. However, at this moment, the 3 dragon carps glowed and turned into a ray of light. In a flash, they escaped from Lu Ming's true essence giant hand. Lu Ming was shocked. Just as he was about to use all his strength to capture them, a terrifying sword energy slashed toward Lu Ming. Helpless, Lu Ming could only turn around and punch out. Bang! The sword energy was defeated. Whoosh! Whoosh! In a flash, Wu Qingkong, the brawny man from the Ji family, Sandalwood Fairy, and Kong Xian appeared around Lu Ming. However, they did not attack immediately. Instead, they locked their auras on Lu Ming. Brat, it's you. Wu Qingkong was taken aback when he saw Lu Ming clearly. Sandalwood Fairy and Kong Xian were also surprised. Apparently, they had recognized Lu Ming. Brat, to be able to block my sword attack, you must be quite capable. You must have been hiding your strength. Wu Qingkong looked coldly at Lu Ming and continued, however, you dare to capture dragon carps under my nose. You're going to die. In the Martial Saint's secret ground, everyone has a share. Of course, I can take action when I see the treasure. Lu Ming curled his lips. If you take action, you'll have to pay with your life. Wu Qingkong's killing intent exploded. When Lu Ming had refused to give up his spot in the marrow cleansing pool, he had already wanted to kill Lu Ming. Now, his killing intent was even stronger. Whoosh! Wu Qingkong swung his sword and a terrifying sword chi slashed at Lu Ming. It was even stronger than before. Lu Ming was fearless. He activated the suppressing hell skill and punched out with his dragon force. Boom! The heavens and the earth trembled as the energy surged. Pillars of water rose from the lake below. The 3 dragon carps flashed and dodged the energy. Bang! The sword chi dissipated. Lu Ming broke the sword chi with his fist. He stepped forward and said in a cold voice, "You're still not strong enough." Then, he punched out again. Lu Ming's fist seemed to contain the force of millions of tons. It was so terrifying that the entire space trembled. So strong. Wu Qingkong was shocked. His true essence surged and his sword hummed as he slashed out a shocking sword chi. However, it was useless. Lu Ming was like an invincible god of war. He punched out and destroyed the sword chi. He quickly approached Wu Qingkong. On the side, Sandalwood Fairy, Kong Xian, and the others were also shocked. They had never imagined that the young man who had passed the heavenly market cave by luck would be so powerful. It was too terrifying. Why do I find this person's fighting style a little familiar? Sandalwood Fairy said. I have the same feeling. Kong Xian said. Whoosh! Chapter 1078. Don't even think about it. Sandalwood Fairy shouted. She waved her hand and a few elixirs flew out. The elixirs glowed and turned into weapons that attacked the burly man from the Ji family. At the same time, Kong Xian also attacked the burly man from the Ji family. The 3 of them engaged in a fierce battle. Boom! Boom! Lu Ming was brave and invincible. He stepped on the void and punched with earth-shattering force. The void continued to explode as Wu Qingkong was forced to retreat. He was at a complete disadvantage. Finally, he let out a long roar and used bloodline fusion to turn into a battle sword. The sword chi whistled as he fought Lu Ming. To be honest, Wu Qingkong's battle strength was very strong. He was much stronger than Sanguinarum. No wonder he was called one of the strongest experts after the 5 magnates. He had the right to be arrogant. However, his cultivation was still at LV1 spiritual god. Lu Ming was never afraid of anyone at the same level. Clang! Clang! After a few consecutive punches, the battle sword was sent flying and vibrating in the air. Damn it, who are you? Wu Qingkong roared in disbelief. He could not believe that someone who appeared out of nowhere had such terrifying battle strength. Not far away, Kong Xian and the others were also shocked. Wu Qingkong was completely suppressed. It was too shocking. Who else could do this except for the 5 magnates? Rumble. At this moment, a terrifying explosion came from afar. A ray of blood light flew over at high speed. Swoosh! A burly figure appeared in the air. His eyes were like lightning. When he saw Lu Ming, his killing intent was even more shocking. Lu Shaoqing, die! With a roar, the figure punched out. The blood-red fist radiance pierced through the void and blasted toward Lu Ming. Shuefeng. Lu Ming frowned. This figure was Cold Blood Hall's #1 genius of the previous generation, Shuefeng. He did not expect Shuefeng to be here. Lu Ming punched back and collided with Shuefeng's fist radiance. His body trembled and he was forced to retreat. Shuefeng was very strong. With a level 7 divine bloodline and a LV4 spiritual god cultivation, his battle strength was terrifying. Shuefeng stepped forward with a violent aura. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he stared at Lu Ming. At this moment, Sandalwood Fairy and Kong Xian were dumbfounded. Lu Shaoqing. Just now, Shuefeng had called Lu Ming Lu Shaoqing. This dark-skinned young man was actually Lu Shaoqing. Sandalwood Fairy and her companion exchanged a blow with the Ji clan's burly man and retreated far away. They did not continue fighting. Xue Feng's arrival made the situation even more complicated. "Brother Lu, it's you," Sandalwood Fairy said. "Fairy, how have you been?" Lu Ming smiled. Facing Xue Feng, he remained calm. "It's really you." Kong Xian was also shocked. At that moment, Wu Qingkong retreated far away and observed from afar. "This brat offended Xue Feng, he's courting death." Wu Qingkong sneered. "Kill!" Xue Feng roared, stepped forward, and punched out. The space shattered under the blood-red fist. It was extremely terrifying. "Do you think I'm afraid of you?" The third bloodline appeared, and a trace of power entered Lu Ming's body. Instantly, a terrifying killing intent emanated from Lu Ming's body, and his hair turned blood-red. Then, the third bloodline turned into a sword, which Lu Ming held in his hand and slashed out. Puff! The blood-red sword light flashed and split Xue Feng's fist in half. "Is that his bloodline? Strange, why is there no chakra?" Sandalwood Fairy and the others were shocked. First, they were shocked that Lu Ming had finally used his bloodline power. His combat strength had indeed increased, and he had not used his full strength before. Second, they were shocked that Lu Ming's bloodline did not have a chakra. This was unheard of. Damn it, this guy probably doesn't have a life talisman. I must find a way to kill him. When he fights Xue Feng, I'll wait for an opportunity to strike. Wu Qingkong's mind kept spinning. Xue Feng was also shocked when he saw Lu Ming's sword break his fist. The true essence in his body circulated wildly, and his aura became even more violent. Divine Blood Leopard Fist. Xue Feng's fists were like blood jade, and he constantly punched out. Fist radiance flew out, and in the process, it turned into a blood leopard and pounced on Lu Ming. This was a divine-level martial skill, and it was extremely powerful. 5 slaughter styles. Lu Ming circulated the 5 slaughter styles, and the blood-red battle sword buzzed. Sword radiance shot out, and scattered the blood leopards one after another. Slaughter mentality. Xue Feng was shocked, and at the same time, he was even more determined to kill Lu Ming. Lu Ming's talent was too shocking. He was only at the first level of Spirit God, but he could already fight with him. Bloodline appeared above his head, and in the next moment, he turned into a blood leopard, roaring and pouncing on Lu Ming. Lu Ming was fearless. He held his battle sword and fought with Xue Feng. Lu Ming's combat strength was unparalleled, and he was invincible among those at the same level. However, Xue Feng's cultivation was 3 levels higher than Lu Ming's. Moreover, he had also comprehended a divine-level martial skill, and his bloodline fusion was even more powerful. Lu Ming and Xue Feng exchanged dozens of moves, and gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. The difference between our cultivation is too great. If I use the 9 Dragons bloodline, or the Suppressing Hell Steel bloodline, and the 3rd bloodline, I might be able to fight with him. Lu Ming's mind raced. However, this result was already enough to shock everyone present to the extreme. I didn't expect Brother Lu's combat strength to be so strong. This is too shocking. Kong Xian was tongue-tied, and after a while, he said this. He was also at the first level of Spirit God, but he realized that if he fought with Lu Ming now, he would be easily killed. On the other side, the battle sword that Wu Qingkong had transformed into was also trembling in fear. If Lu Ming had used this kind of combat strength, he would not have been able to resist at all. He was too strong. That's right, even the 5 great authorities might not be as strong as him. Sandalwood Fairy sighed. Seal. In the middle of the battle, Lu Ming used the 9 seals of the God Gate, and a light gate was formed. It shone brightly and suppressed Xue Feng. For a moment, Xue Feng was actually frozen. Kill. Lu Ming took a step forward and slashed at Xue Feng's head with his sword. Roar! Xue Feng roared, and a bloody light burst out. With a bang, the light gate was shattered at the critical moment. Xue Feng continued to retreat, but he was still one step too late, and a piece of his scalp was cut off. Then, Lu Ming lifted his leg and kicked Xue Feng's stomach, sending him flying. What a pity! Lu Ming lamented in his heart. His cultivation was still not strong enough, and the gate of the seal was broken by Xue Feng's violent True Yuan. If Lu Ming's cultivation was stronger, or if he had cultivated 2 gates of the seal, it would not be so easy for Xue Feng to break it. The gate of the seal was not omnipotent. If one's cultivation was too strong, Lu Ming would not be able to seal it. Even so, Xue Feng was already shivering. He looked at Lu Ming with fear in his eyes. Just now, he was almost killed by Lu Ming's sword. What kind of secret technique is this? It's so terrifying. He was horrified. For a moment, he dared not step forward to fight with Lu Ming. Kill! This time, it was Lu Ming's turn to take the initiative. He stepped forward and attacked Xue Feng. Buzz! Chapter 1079. The gate of seals glowed and flew towards Xue Feng like a ray of light. Moreover, the light emitted by the gate of seals also had a sealing effect. Xue Feng could not escape at all. His body was enveloped by the light of the gate of seals and he could not help but stiffen. Swoosh! Lu Ming's body was like a flickering shadow as he rushed towards Xue Feng. The blood leopard that Xue Feng had transformed into let out a furious roar. Blood spurted out like a volcanic eruption and rushed towards the gate of seals. This time, Lu Ming was even faster. The blood sword pierced through the void and pierced through the blood leopard's body in an instant. Roar! The blood leopard let out a shocking roar as it broke through the gate of seals and clawed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming's expression changed. In a hurry, he struck out with his palm and clashed with the blood leopard's claw. With a loud bang, Lu Ming's body was sent flying a few thousand meters away. His qi and blood were in turmoil and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Xue Feng's genuine yuan was too strong. The moment Lu Ming stabbed him, he broke through the gate of seals and launched a counterattack. However, the blood leopard that Xue Feng had transformed into was definitely not in a good state after being stabbed by Lu Ming. At this moment, he roared and did not dare to continue the battle. Instead, he turned and ran. Lu Ming did not chase after him. With his current cultivation, coupled with the 9 seals of the Divine Gate, he could indeed injure Xue Feng. However, it was almost impossible to kill him. If Xue Feng went all out, Lu Ming would not be in a good state either. In the blink of an eye, Xue Feng had disappeared. As for Wu Qingkong, he had already sneaked away before Xue Feng had escaped. As for the dragon carp, he did not dare to take it anymore. If he stayed, he would definitely be killed by Lu Ming. On the other side, the expression of the Ji family's strong man changed. In the end, he let out a long sigh and turned to leave. His combat strength was only on par with Wu Qingkong. If he continued to stay, he would only be courting death. In an instant, only Lu Ming, Sandalwood Fairy, and Kong Xian were left above the lake. Brother Lu, why did you disguise yourself? Even your aura has changed. We are suffering. Sandalwood said with a smile. There are some people that I don't want to see. Fairy, please forgive me. Lu Ming smiled. Then, Lu Ming looked at the 3 dragon carps in the lake and said, do you too also need dragon carps? It's all thanks to Brother Lu this time. Otherwise, if Xue Feng had arrived, Brother Kong and I probably wouldn't have gained anything. These 3 dragon carps naturally belong to Brother Lu. Sandalwood said. Fairy, you're too polite. I only need 2. As for the other one, you can take it. Lu Ming smiled and landed on the surface of the lake. He used the Divine Gate 9 seals. In a flash, the gate of seals appeared and locked the 3 dragon carps in place. Then, his Zhenyuan condensed into a giant hand and scooped up the 3 dragon carps. With a wave of his hand, 2 of the dragon carps disappeared. Lu Ming had collected them into a small lake in the mountain and river diagram. To refine the nirvana pill, he only needed the true blood of the dragon carps, not the dragon carps. Therefore, 2 dragon carps were enough, and more would not be of much use. There was no harm in giving the other one to Sandalwood Fairy. "Thank you, Brother Lu." Sandalwood Fairy was overjoyed. She was an alchemist, and this dragon carp was indeed of great use to her. After Sandalwood Fairy put it away, she was about to say something when her expression suddenly froze. She revealed a look of surprise and stared ahead with wide eyes. On the side, Kong Xian was the same. He seemed to have seen something extremely shocking. Lu Ming was a little surprised. He turned around and in the next moment, his eyes immediately widened. In front of him, at an unknown distance, there was a magnificent palace that emerged from the void. It was surrounded by clouds and mist outside, like an immortal palace. It was incomparably huge, but it was full of vicissitudes, as if it had crossed endless years. It seemed real and illusory at the same time. From afar, it was very unreal, like an illusion. What kind of palace is this? It wasn't there just now. Lu Ming was surprised. There was nothing there just now, so why would an ancient palace suddenly appear? Sacred mansion, it's the sacred mansion. Kong Xian muttered to himself, his eyes revealing an incomparable excitement. Sacred mansion. Both Sandalwood Fairy and Lu Ming were very surprised. This arcane realm was called the Sacred Mansion Arcane Realm, but Lu Ming had never known what it meant. He did not expect that there really was a sacred mansion. Yes, in the ancient books of our World Academy, there is a sacred mansion in this arcane realm, and there is a supreme existence inside. It is said that it surpasses the Emperor. Kong Xian said word by word. His eyes were filled with excitement, as if he was on a pilgrimage. An existence that surpasses the Emperor. Lu Ming and Sandalwood gasped a breath of cold air. In the divine wilderness continent, the Emperor was the strongest. In the eyes of all cultivators, the Emperor was already a supreme existence. Their combat strength was earth-shattering. With a palm strike, they could split the sky and crack the earth, penetrate the earth, and pierce through the sky. It was boundlessly terrifying. The ultimate goal of all cultivators was to become an emperor and dominate the world. But now, there was a figure above the Emperor here. How could it not be shocking? Is this true? Lu Ming asked. Kong Xian shook his head and said, I don't know, but it is indeed recorded in the ancient books. And according to the ancient books, the sacred mansion rarely appears. Even when the emperors could freely enter this place, no one has seen it. It has always been a legend, but now it has really appeared. It is incredible. Kong Xian sighed again and again. He was very excited, and then he revealed many secrets. According to the old legends, there was an existence that surpassed the sovereign level living in this Saint Mansion. If someone obtained the Saint Mansion token, they could enter the Saint Mansion with it and obtain great opportunities. They might even have the chance to obtain the inheritance of that existence. And the Sacred Mansion token was in the Sacred Mansion Arcane Realm. It is said that this Sacred Mansion Arcane Realm has existed for hundreds of thousands of years. Even if it is an existence above the Emperor, it can't live for hundreds of thousands of years, right? Sandalwood Fairy said with some doubts. The path of cultivation was against the heavens. The higher the cultivation, the longer the lifespan. It was already very heaven-defying for an emperor to live for 10 to 20,000 years. It was equivalent to a mortal living for hundreds of years, watching the world change like a living history book. As for the existence above the emperor, no matter how powerful it was, it could not live for hundreds of thousands of years. It was too shocking and unbelievable. Unless it was a legendary god. Legend said that gods could exist with heaven and earth, but that was only a legend. I'm not too sure about that either. Kong Xian shook his head. Even so, their eyes were filled with flames. An existence that surpassed a ruler, this was too shocking. Once one reached such a boundary, one would definitely be all-powerful and unimaginable. If it was true, they would benefit endlessly if they obtained something. Roar! Roar! At this moment, a long howl resounded through the earth. It was extremely shocking. Awoo! The three of them saw a huge silver wolf appear on a mountain peak in the distance. It howled at the sky, and its aura was shocking like a tsunami. With a stomp, the mountain peak collapsed. The silver wolf broke through the sky and flew in the direction of the sacred mansion. Rumble! In the sky, a mountain ridge moved. Upon closer look, it was a giant snake swimming across the sky, heading toward the sacred mansion. Bang! The earth rumbled and trembled. Not far away, a giant ape as tall as a mountain stepped on the ground, causing the earth to crack and the mountains to tremble. Chapter 1080. The land seemed to be boiling. Powerful beasts went berserk and flew in the direction of the Saint Mansion. Along the way, if they saw any human martial artists, they would kill them immediately. There were even powerful beasts that killed each other. Caw! With a sharp cry, the sky darkened as a terrifying pressure pressed down. Oh no, run! Lu Ming's face changed as he rushed to the side. Sandalwood Fairy and Kong Xian's faces also changed as they followed Lu Ming to the side. A strong wind blew as a giant eagle flew over their heads. Its eyes were as sharp as swords as it glanced at the three of them. With a flap of its wings, a terrifying tornado was formed and swept toward the three of them. Wherever the tornado passed, not to mention trees, even huge mountains were uprooted and swept into it. The scene was horrifying. The three of them ran forward at full speed to avoid the tornado. After the giant eagle fanned out the tornado, it ignored Lu Ming and the others and quickly flew away. The three of them didn't dare to take it head-on. They used their movement techniques to avoid it. After flying for a few thousand miles, the tornado weakened and disappeared into the air. Phew! The three of them let out a long breath. That giant eagle was definitely a beast above the 7th level spirit god realm. It was too strong. They were too weak. It seems that the sacred mansion has really appeared. The powerful beasts in the secret territory have all been alarmed. Kong Xian said. What are you going to do next? Lu Ming asked. We'll meet up with the other brothers and see if we can take a gamble. If we can get a little opportunity from the appearance of the sacred mansion, it will be endless benefits. Kong Xian's eyes were burning with passion. Sandalwood Fairy nodded. A group of people from the Medicine King Valley had also entered. She also wanted to meet up with them. Fairy, why don't we join forces? The Medicine King Valley is good at inscription. The World Academy also has people who are good at inscription and martial arts. Only by working together can we bring out the best in each other. Kong Xian said. Okay, it's decided. Brother Lu, will you come with us? Sandalwood Fairy looked at Lu Ming. No, I have other things to do. I'll take my leave now. Lu Ming shook his head, bid farewell to the two of them, and left. The two of them felt that it was a pity. If Lu Ming were to join them, their chances of success would undoubtedly be greater. Then, the two of them left. With the appearance of the sacred residence, everyone in the secret realm was in an uproar. Everyone from the World Academy knew some secrets, and rumors about those above the ruler level had also spread. All the powerhouses who entered the secret realm were extremely enthusiastic. Powerhouses from various forces gathered and headed toward the sacred residence. Lu Ming flew all the way and soon saw a few corpses of ferocious beasts. They were all killed by the ferocious beasts. Lu Ming landed and his devouring power burst out, devouring the blood essence of the ferocious beasts. This was the reason why he had left Sandalwood Ferry and Kong Xian. Just now, the powerful vicious beasts in the mystic realm had gone on a rampage and killed many martial artists and weaker vicious beasts. Lu Ming didn't want to waste them, so he swallowed them and broke through to the next realm. Along the way, Lu Ming devoured all the human martial artists and ferocious beasts that he saw being killed. Many of them were at the spiritual god level. Lu Ming devoured more and more energy. After a full day, Lu Ming had devoured the energy of hundreds of human cultivators and vicious beasts. Then, he found a hidden place and entered the mountain river diagram to begin refining. The energy of the blood essence was all used to improve the 9 dragons' bloodline. The other energy was all converted into vital essence. Lu Ming began to break through to the second level of the spirit god realm. His current conception of heaven and earth was completely ahead of his cultivation. As long as he had energy, he could break through to the next realm. Boom! Boom! The majestic vital essence gathered in the spiritual god, making it more solid. The spiritual god sat cross-legged in his dantian, his whole body glowing and looking solemn. After a long time, with a rumble, Lu Ming's aura surged. The second level of the spirit god realm. Lu Ming had finally broken through to the second level of the spirit god realm, and his strength had greatly improved. If he encountered Xue Feng now, Lu Ming was confident that he could kill him even without using the 9 seals of the divine gate. Lu Ming stood up and stepped out, appearing outside the mountain river diagram. Now I can fight for the Saint Mansion. Lu Ming revealed a confident expression. If it was before he broke through to the second level of the spirit god realm, even if Lu Ming went, he might not be able to obtain any benefits. Many of the previous generation's geniuses had entered the mountain river diagram. Every overlord force probably had an expert like Xue Feng, and there might even be someone stronger. Moreover, these forces had many people. If Lu Ming was at the first level of the spirit god realm, even if he went, he might not be their opponent. Moreover, there was also Yang Patian. The battle strength of the 5 young tycoons was absolutely shocking and couldn't be underestimated. But now, Lu Ming was confident that even if he couldn't suppress all of them, it wouldn't be a problem for him to get a share of the loot. Using the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps, Lu Ming turned into a streak of light and flew away. Soon, Lu Ming had flown a few 100,000 miles. So far, where is the Saint Mansion? Lu Ming was speechless. After flying a few 100,000 miles, he felt that the Saint Mansion wasn't close at all. It was still so far away that he couldn't see it. Lu Ming continued to fly, flying a few 100,000 miles. Unfortunately, it was still the same. He didn't feel that he was close to the Saint Mansion. The Saint Mansion was floating in the air like an immortal palace. Boom! Suddenly, there was an uproar in front of him. There were experts fighting fiercely. In the distance, the sky was shrouded in endless light. Various colored lights flickered as terrifying attacks collided continuously. Lu Ming was slightly surprised. He restrained his aura and flew over. Fairy, Brother Kong. Below, there were some figures looking up. Fairy Sandalwood and Kong Xian were among them. Lu Ming flew over to greet them. Brother Lu. Seeing Lu Ming, both of them smiled. What's going on? Lu Ming asked. They're fighting for the Saint Mansion's token. Fairy Sandalwood said. What? The Saint Mansion's token has appeared. Lu Ming was shocked. He didn't expect that the battle in the sky was because of the Saint Mansion's token. High up in the sky, dazzling lights flashed. It was impossible to see the faces of the people inside. Only 7 or 8 figures could be seen crisscrossing and fighting fiercely. They were all powerful and terrifying existences. Even Fairy Sandalwood and Kong Xian could only watch from below, unable to interfere. There were many people watching below. Lu Ming saw Yin Bupo from the Sky Eagle Fort and some other experts from the Sky Eagle Fort. In addition, the Ji family from the Demon Mountain was also there. Everyone stared at the sky, watching the progress of the battle. Bang! Suddenly, a huge figure was shot down and fell heavily on the ground. It was a lightning eagle. Its body was covered in lightning, but there was no aura. It was dead. Senior brother. In Bupo and the others shouted in anger. Obviously, this lightning eagle was an expert from the previous generation of the Sky Eagle Fort. Swoosh! At this moment, another figure rushed down. Chapter 1081. Senior Brother Luo. Kong Xian's expression changed as he stepped forward. Obviously, this person was an expert from the World Academy. Sigh, I'm no match for them. I don't need the Sacred Mansion token. Senior Brother Luo sighed. Kong Xian and Sandalwood Fairy were shocked. They knew that Senior Brother Luo was the #1 prodigy of the World Academy. He had awakened a 7th level divine bloodline and reached the 4th level of the Spirit God realm. He shouldn't be weaker than Xuefeng, but he still couldn't defeat them. The number of people decreased, but the battle became more intense. Terrifying vibrations spread out for thousands of miles. The void was as fragile as a piece of paper. Bang! Bang! Following that, more and more people were sent flying out of the battlefield. 4 people were sent out of the battlefield in succession. They were severely injured and stood in the void, looking at the battlefield unwillingly with fear in their eyes. Lu Ming could see that there were only 2 figures left in the sky, fighting fiercely. Clang! Clang! The sounds of collisions were constantly heard as if 2 gods were fighting. Sizzle! The space cracked and the light faded. 2 figures appeared in front of everyone. Both of them were tall and burly with wild auras. One of them held a halberd in his hand. His black hair hung loosely behind his back, and his aura was shocking to the extreme. Just by standing there, the space around him was like water, constantly twisting and distorting, forming circular ripples. Yang Patian. This person was actually one of the top 5 youths, Yang Patian. The other person stood in front of Yang Patian. His body was even more burly than Yang Potion's, revealing 2 muscular arms. He was holding a huge spiked club. This person looked very young, definitely not more than 30 years old. He was in the same generation as Lu Ming. A prodigy of the younger generation was actually able to fight with Yang Patian. Who was this person? This person is from the Northern Plains and is known as the #1 prodigy of the Northern Plains. I heard that he fought with Yang Patian outside before. Kong Xian explained in a low voice. Lu Ming suddenly understood. So it was a prodigy of the Northern Plains. He had also heard that a prodigy from the Northern Plains fought with Yang Patian to a draw. Between the 2 of them, there was a purple gold token floating in the air, emitting a hazy glow. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. This should be the Holy Mansion's token. Tuoba sure, let's settle this today. Yang Patian held the halberd in his hand. With a slight movement, he cut open a crack in space. His aura was wild. His hair danced in the wind, and his eyes were like lightning. That's exactly what I wanted. Tuoba sure grinned and waved his mace, creating a loud rumbling sound. Waves of energy surged, and the token of the Saint Mansion was blasted high up into the sky. Shwa shwa. At the same time, the 2 of them moved, rushing towards each other, starting a great battle. Yang Patian had also comprehended the will of space, and his usage of it was even more terrifying than Di Shen's. At the same time, he also had the support of other wills. When he struck out with his halberd, it was as if he could sever the void. Tuoba Shure's muscles bulged like an invincible warrior. His mace danced in the air, crushing everything in its path. When it collided with the ancient halberd, a terrifying rumble could be heard. The 2 of them clashed fiercely, and in the blink of an eye, they had exchanged dozens of blows. The others gathered around to watch, their eyes filled with amazement. Is this the strength of the 5 giants? They're indeed powerful. Lu Ming exclaimed. At the same time, a strong fighting spirit appeared in his eyes. Sigh, they're too powerful. They haven't even used the bloodline fusion, but they're already so powerful. I'm too far behind them. Kong Xian sighed. Have their bloodlines surpassed level 8 of the divine level? Lu Ming asked. That's right. The bloodlines of the 5 giants of the central continent are all at level 9 of the divine level. Sandalwood Fairy said. They're actually at level 9 of the divine level. Lu Ming was also a little surprised. Level 9 of the divine level was the highest level of bloodline. Each of them was extremely terrifying. The higher one's bloodline was, the greater the difference in the talent or bloodline bonus brought by each level. Level 7 of the divine level was much stronger than level 6 of the divine level. However, level 8 of the divine level was much stronger than level 7 of the divine level, whether it was talent or bloodline bonus. As for level 9 of the divine level, it was even more terrifying. This was because level 9 of the divine level represented the peak and perfection. It was not something a level 8 of the divine level could compare to. If level 8 of the divine level meant that one had the potential to become an emperor, then level 9 of the divine level meant that one would definitely become an emperor as long as they didn't die. In the history of the divine wilderness continent, anyone who awakened level 9 of the divine level bloodline would become an emperor as long as they didn't die. The 5 giants of the central continent were equivalent to becoming an emperor in the future. It was no wonder that Yang Patian was so arrogant. He always acted as if he was above everyone else. He was destined to become an emperor. Apart from people who were at the same level as him, everyone else was just an ant in his eyes. Perhaps in the depths of his heart, he didn't even care about supremes. Clang! Clang! The battle continued and became more and more intense. Both of them were really angry for the Sacred Mansion token. Both of them were determined to get the Sacred Mansion token. Chapter 1082. Yang Patian and Tuoba Shi's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Someone actually dared to mess with them. They deserved to die. The two of them scanned the crowd with murderous intent, sending chills down everyone's spine. In the end, they did not find anyone suspicious. Yang Patian snorted coldly and left. Tuoba Shi grinned and left as well. Since the Sacred Mansion token was fake, there was no need for them to continue fighting. Then, the people from the other forces left one after another. Lu Ming did not leave. He had his eyes on a person. It was a slightly plump young man. He looked very simple and honest. However, his eyes were darting around and Lu Ming felt that they were somewhat familiar. Fairy, Brother Kong, come with me. Lu Ming whispered. Fairy Sandalwood and Kong Xian were slightly stunned, then nodded and followed Lu Ming in a certain direction. In front of them, the simple-looking young man was strolling in the mountains. He did not seem to be walking fast, but his speed was surprisingly fast. The three of them concealed their auras and followed the young man in the forest. Fairy Sandalwood and Kong Xian were curious. They did not know why Lu Ming was following the young man. Could it be that Lu Ming had noticed something? After traveling for 10,000 miles, the young man in front of them stopped and looked around. Then, a light flashed on his body. In the next moment, the young man's appearance changed completely. He had turned into a monk. Unscrupulous monk. Lu Ming recognized the monk at a glance. It was the same unscrupulous monk they had met before. Western Desert Holy Monk. The three of them hid behind a rock and concealed their auras as much as possible. Kong Xian transmitted his voice to the other two. They could only transmit their voice because they were too close. If they spoke, no matter how soft their voices were, unscrupulous monk would hear them. Sigh. At this moment, unscrupulous monk sighed, then reached into his chest and took out a purple gold token. The three of them were dumbfounded. Wasn't that the sacred mansion token? It was exactly the same as the one before. My hair, my Buddha is merciful. It's a pity that only a few experts died this time. Yang Patian and Tuo Bashir were not injured. I thought they would both be injured. The monk muttered in a low voice, but Lu Ming and the other two heard him clearly. The three of them looked at each other, especially Sandalwood Fairy and Kong Xian, whose eyes almost popped out of their sockets. It was actually this fellow. To think that the one who threw out the fake Saint Manor token and started the battle was actually this fellow. Weren't the holy monks of the Western Desert compassionate and merciful? But how could this guy do such a thing? Sandalwood Fairy and Kong Xian were both in a daze. Lu Ming was better off because he was mentally prepared. He had seen how heartless this monk was before. Looks like I have to do it again. Unscrupulous monk mumbled and revealed a harmless smile. With a wave of his sleeve, he strode away. Lu Ming and the other two stared at each other in bewilderment. In the end, they did not continue to follow. They returned to the place where the battle had taken place and gathered with the people from the World Academy and Medicine King Valley. Brother Kong, why can't we get close to the Saint Mansion? I've flown for millions of miles, but it still seems so far away. Lu Ming was a little puzzled. The Saint Mansion should be millions of miles ahead, but because it hasn't fully manifested, it looks so far away. In fact, we've been getting closer. Kong Xian explained. The World Academy was the most familiar with the Saint Mansion's secret realms. Lu Ming nodded. Immediately, Lu Ming, Sandalwood Fairy, and the others flew in the direction of the Saint Mansion. Hundreds of thousands of miles later. The Saint Mansion token has appeared ahead. What? The Saint Mansion token is mine. Let's go. They heard a series of loud shouts as figures streaked across the void and flew in a certain direction. That monk is stirring up trouble again. Kong Xian gritted his teeth. Let's go take a look, but don't do anything. Sandalwood Fairy said. Everyone flew in that direction. Sure enough, there was a terrifying battle in a place, and corpses were falling continuously. In the forest below, they saw a slightly plump young man with rolling eyes. It was the unscrupulous monk in disguise. At that moment, the unscrupulous monk was running around, picking up the storage rings of the dead. Sandalwood Fairy and Kong Xian's eyelids twitched. Is that really the saint monk of the Western Desert? Could it be fake? Sandalwood Fairy's eyes widened in disbelief. That had completely shattered her understanding of the saint monk of the Western Desert. It should be real. I've fought with him before, and I used a Buddhist cultivation technique. Lu Ming said. The unscrupulous monk was unfathomable. He was young, but his combat strength was extremely terrifying. Then, Lu Ming and the others left the place because the Saint Mansion token must be fake. It must be the unscrupulous monk who was stirring up trouble. The group flew for millions of miles. A huge mountain peak appeared in front of them. The peak was bare, without any vegetation. It was all rocks. At this moment, the entire mountain peak was covered with inscriptions. It was glowing and incomparably resplendent. High up in the sky, the wind and clouds gathered. The huge palace was faintly discernible, as if it was in the sky, but it had not fully materialized. Thousands of figures stood in the distance of the mountain. They were all the experts of the major factions who had entered this time. Roar! Roar! Terrifying roars could be heard. Dozens of powerful beasts were fighting fiercely on the mountain. Blood chi soared into the sky. Lu Ming and the others were shocked and they saw that from afar. Those powerful existences in the secret realm were coming here, but they were fighting each other on the mountain. Why was that? The roars were endless, and the fighting was extremely fierce. Those who could come here were all existences above the 7th level of the spirit god realm. Howl! There was a wolf howl that was extremely mournful. Lu Ming saw a huge silver wolf that was 100 meters tall. However, its heart was grabbed by a huge eagle and it fell on the mountain peak. Fresh blood seeped into the mountain peak, making the mountain peak shine even brighter. Caw! The giant eagle was not faring well either. Its wings were grabbed by a giant ape, and its wings were torn off. Then, a giant centipede cut open its stomach. All of them were giant beasts fighting fiercely. Giant beasts fell and were torn apart. A giant snake as big as a mountain was cut into several pieces by a giant mantis. However, the mantis head was bitten off by the giant snake before it died. Whoosh! Whoosh! More and more people came, but they all stopped in the distance and looked at the scene in shock. Half a day later, all the giant beasts fell on the mountain. Their blood seeped into the mountain as if they had become nourishment for the mountain. In the sky, the ancient palace was rumbling. Wind and clouds gathered, and it seemed like it would appear at any time. At this moment, the crowd finally dared to approach the mountain. Lu Ming looked over and saw more than 5,000 people. Lu Ming saw Yang Patian, Tuo Bashir, and Di Shen. Junior brother Wu, is he the person you were talking about? Suddenly, a cold voice was heard. A murderous gaze stared at Lu Ming. Lu Ming turned his head and frowned. A group of youths with swords on their backs stood not far away. Some of them were looking at Lu Ming coldly. Wu Qingkong. Chapter 1083. These were the experts of the Sky Martial Sword faction. Senior brother, that's him. His name is Lu Shaoqing. Wu Qingkong said to a man in his 40s. Humph. The man in his prime stepped out and stared at Lu Ming with a cold gaze. Lu Shaoqing, how dare you lay your hands on the people from the Talent Swordsmanship sect? I think you don't need to live in this world. The burly man's aura was oppressive as he exuded a powerful aura. The others heard the commotion and looked over. Lu Shaoqing. Among them, Jing Kongling, Junyu, and Yin Bupo were surprised. They had seen Lu Ming before. They were surprised to see Lu Ming. Isn't that the weakling with a combat strength of 5? Yes, that's him. Did he offend the Sky Martial Sword faction? He's courting death. Why do I feel that Wu Qingkong suffered a loss in his hands? Otherwise, why would he ask the experts of the previous generation to help him? He could have done it himself. That's true. It can't be, right? Is that weakling so powerful? Many people recognized Lu Ming. There were many discussions and various guesses. Lu Ming glanced at the man in his prime and looked at Wu Qingkong. Wu Qingkong, I let you go last time. Seems like you didn't learn your lesson. I'll send you on your way then. As soon as he said that, everyone was shocked. Could it be that Wu Qingkong had really suffered in Lu Ming's hands? Lu Shaoqing, don't be arrogant. You're the one who's going to die today. Wu Qingkong's face was cold. He wanted to chop Lu Ming into pieces. Clang! Clang! The sound of swords could be heard. Powerful sword auras erupted from the bodies of the Tianwu sword sect members. Their gazes were like swords as they stared at Lu Ming. Swoosh! Another tall and sturdy man in the prime of his life stepped out and stood beside the previous man. His aura was astonishing. There are 2 LV for Spirit God Realm experts. Lu Ming's lips curled into a faint smile. There were 2 4th-level Spirit God experts in the Sky Martial Sword sect. Judging from their auras, they were not weaker than Xuefeng. They should be at the same level as Xuefeng. Oh no, it's them. Brother Lu, these 2 are the strongest geniuses of the previous generation of the Sky Martial Sword faction. Both of them have awakened level 7 divine bloodlines. Sandalwood Fairy said worriedly. Sky Martial Sword faction, don't go too far. If you want to kill Brother Lu, you'll have to go through the World Academy first. Kong Xian stepped forward and stared at the people from the Celestial Martial Sword sect. Although they had seen Lu Ming fight before, and he was indeed powerful enough to injure Xue Feng and force Xue Feng to retreat in a sorry state. But now, the Sky Martial Sword sect had two experts like Xue Feng. When Lu Ming fought Xue Feng, it was already very difficult. Facing two such experts, he was definitely not a match. World Academy, if you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Within the Sky Martial Sword sect, a robust man at the 4th level of the Spirit God realm spoke coldly and in an extremely domineering manner. What arrogance! From the World Academy, a man in his 30s stepped out, his aura exploding. This was the strongest person from the World Academy this time. He was also the top genius of the previous generation of the World Academy. He was on the same level as Xue Feng. One had to admit that the previous generation's geniuses were too weak compared to this generation. Those who had awakened level 7 divine bloodlines were already the top geniuses of their respective factions. They couldn't be compared to this generation's geniuses at all. The difference was too great. It was as if all the luck had been placed on this generation, allowing it to enter a golden age. Ha, brothers Wu, why don't you count me in to kill Lu Shaoqing? With a cold laugh, a man in a blood-red robe stepped out. It was Xue Feng. Back when he was injured by Lu Ming, he had been waiting for an opportunity to take revenge. Now that he saw Lu Ming fighting with the people from the Sky Martial Sword faction, how could he miss such a great opportunity? Xue Feng, you came at the right time. Let's work together and kill this person. One of the men from the Sky Martial Sword faction said. At this moment, everyone's attention was focused on them. This Lu Shaoqing had offended so many people. It seemed like he was going to die today. At this moment, Sandalwood Fairy, Kong Xian, and the white-robed man from the World Academy all had ugly expressions on their faces. If it was only the Sky Martial Sword faction, they might still be able to put up a fight. But with Xue Feng, it would be difficult. You're all here. You came at the right time. Let's settle this together today. Lu Ming smiled faintly and took a step forward. Everyone was stunned. What did he say? Facing such a situation, he actually said that he would settle it together. Was he crazy? Sandalwood Fairy and the others were also stunned. Brother Lu. Sandalwood Fairy called out. Fairy, Brother Kong, leave this place to me. Lu Ming smiled at Sandalwood Fairy and the others, then stepped out to face Xue Feng and the others. Brother Wu, this kid has a very evil secret technique that can seal people's movements. Let's work together and kill him. Xue Feng whispered to the two experts from the Sky Martial Sword faction. All right. The two experts from the Sky Martial Sword faction nodded. They had heard from Wu Qingkong about the battle between Lu Ming and Xue Feng. They knew that Lu Ming was not ordinary. Although he sounded strong, they did not dare to be careless. Boom! 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 The two experts from the Sky Martial Sword faction and Xue Feng unleashed their powerful auras at the same time. Shocking auras shot up to the sky and pressed down on Lu Ming. Whoosh! 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 The three of them moved and surrounded Lu Ming. The three of them are joining forces to deal with Lu Shaoqing? How can this be? Is Lu Shaoqing's combat strength that strong? Otherwise, why would Xue Feng and the others take him so seriously and need the three of them to join forces? They were not fools. When they saw the three's reaction, they knew that something was wrong and guessed what was going on. They were shocked by this guess. Other than the top 5 young geniuses, who else would be so important to Xue Feng and the others? Kid, aren't you very arrogant? Let's see how you're going to die. Xue Feng's eyes were cold. In the next moment, he unleashed his bloodline and performed bloodline fusion, pouncing toward Lu Ming. Kill! Lu Ming roared. His third bloodline appeared and a wisp of power entered Lu Ming's body, turning Lu Ming's hair blood-red. His killing intent rushed out like a tide. At the same time, the 7 dragon powers erupted at the same time, raising Lu Ming's strength to a terrifying level. The third bloodline turned into a blood-red battle sword and was held in Lu Ming's hand. With a slash, a blood-red sword light cut through the void, illuminating the sky and slashing toward Xue Feng. This power, at this moment, Xue Feng's eyes widened and he was terrified. This power was too shocking. It was much more powerful than the last time he fought with Lu Ming. It was much more powerful. Not good. Xue Feng's body turned cold as he tried his best to resist. But with a puff, the sword light slashed through. The blood leopard that Xue Feng had transformed into had one of its claws cut off and was sent flying far away. Xue Feng roared and retreated rapidly. At this moment, the 2 experts of the Sky Martial Sword sect had also arrived. 2 vast sword lights, as large as mountains, slashed toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming slashed out with his sword and destroyed the 2 sword lights. His figure did not stop as he rushed toward Xue Feng. Xue Feng was terrified and retreated rapidly. You can't escape. Chapter 1084. The 9 seals of the Gate of God appeared, emitting light and suppressing Xue Feng. Covered by the light of the Gate of Seal, Xue Feng was frozen in the air. He tried his best to release his true essence, trying to break the Gate of Seal. However, Lu Ming's cultivation had reached the 2nd level of the Spirit God realm, and the Gate of Seal was even more powerful. Xue Feng couldn't break it at all. No, no. He was extremely anxious and kept growling. Swoosh! Lu Ming rushed over and slashed down with his sword. With a bang, Xue Feng was cut in half. Xue Feng's original body appeared, vomiting blood with a deep wound on his chest. He wanted to retreat, but the Gate of Seal was still there. He couldn't retreat even if he wanted to. No, no, spare me! Xue Feng screamed in horror, but what greeted him was a sword light. Puchi! Xue Feng was cut in half. Even the spirit god in his body couldn't escape. It was smashed and turned into ashes. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. It was so fast that many people couldn't react in time. The 2 experts of the Sky Martial Sword sect wanted to save him, but it was too late. How could this be? The 2 experts of the Sky Martial Sword sect were about to launch a fierce attack on Lu Ming when they saw this scene. Their pupils shrank sharply and they subconsciously stopped in their tracks. Hiss, gasps could be heard coming from all around. Xue Feng was killed by Lu Ming in 2 moves. He couldn't resist at all. How could this be? Xue Feng had awakened a level 7 divine bloodline and his cultivation had reached the 4th level of the spirit god realm. His combat strength was absolutely terrifying, but he was killed by Lu Ming so easily. This was unbelievable. Sandalwood Fairy, Kong Xian, and the people of the Medicine King Valley and the World Academy were dumbfounded. They were completely stunned and couldn't believe what they had seen. Wu Qingkong was even more tongue-tied. He was almost scared to death. It had only been a few days. A few days ago, Lu Ming could only fight to a draw with Xue Feng. With the help of the Gate of Seal, he barely had the upper hand. But now, he had completely crushed Xue Feng. In just a few days, Lu Ming's combat strength had increased by a large margin. This was too shocking. It's your turn now. Lu Ming looked at the 2 experts from the Sky Martial Sword sect. His blood-red hair danced in the wind as his killing intent surged. The 2 experts from the Celestial Martial Sword sect were no longer as confident as before. Brother Lu, in my opinion, this is all a misunderstanding. One of them revealed a smile that was uglier than crying. Lu Ming, who was surrounded by the 3 of them, was still able to kill Xue Feng with a thunderous strike. This really frightened them. Misunderstanding? No, there is no misunderstanding. Today, I will kill all of you. I don't need a reason. Lu Ming said indifferently. In the next moment, he took a step forward and rushed towards the 2 of them like a beam of bloody light. Damn it! Let's attack together and kill him. The two of them roared and unleashed their bloodlines at the same time, turning into two gigantic swords. Without a doubt, both of them had divine-grade bloodlines and had comprehended divine-grade martial skills. Their battle prowess was incomparably terrifying. Clang! Clang! Sword cries rang out as the other experts from the celestial martial sword faction made their move. Unsheathing their swords, sword beams shot up into the sky as they charged towards Lu Ming. Seal! The bloody sword floated in the air as Lu Ming formed a seal with both of his hands. A sealing gate flew out and enveloped one of the gigantic swords. In an instant, the gigantic swords were immobilized. Kill! Lu Ming held the sword in his hand and struck one of the swords away. At the same time, he took several steps and the terrifying power of the 9 dragons' sky-stomping steps erupted. Boom! 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 After taking 7 consecutive steps, Lu Ming stepped on the sword that was sealed by the sealing gate. The sword immediately crumbled and Lu Ming's body appeared. However, with a flash of sword light, his head fell to the ground. The spiritual deity of this person flew out from his body in panic and fear. Bam! Bam! Lu Ming's left hand executed the suppressing hell-heaven art and slapped out continuously. His right hand held the bloody sword as he executed the 5 slaughter styles. Dang! The remaining 4th-level spiritual deity's sword was sent flying as the sword body trembled continuously. The bloody sword slashed out millions of sword beams. The escaping spiritual deity let out a blood-curdling scream as he was turned into ashes by the sword beams. At the same time, a few sky martial sword sex experts were also killed by the sword beams. Lu Ming turned into a killing god as he charged towards the last 4th-level spiritual deity. Run, run, run. At this moment, that person had been scared out of his wits and was running for his life. Lu Ming was too strong. Not to mention other things, just in terms of strength, Lu Ming had completely surpassed him. Coupled with the sealing gate, it was simply unstoppable. Where do you think you're going? Lu Ming stared at him and rushed past. Wherever he passed, he killed a few more sky martial sword sex experts. In an instant, Lu Ming approached rapidly and formed a seal with both of his hands. Another sealing gate appeared. That sword was instantly immobilized as Lu Ming charged forward. No! Spare me! Save me! That person roared, but the outcome was already decided. Lu Ming caught up and killed him with lightning speed. From then on, the 3 experts who wanted to kill Lu Ming were all killed by Lu Ming. He also killed a few sky martial sword sex experts along the way. The other sky martial sword sect members were terrified. How would they dare to fight? They all fled. So strong. The others present looked at Lu Ming in shock. They were tongue-tied and couldn't say a word. Lu Ming's combat strength was too shocking to kill 3 experts in a row. Yang Patian and Tuoba Shi looked at Lu Ming in the sky with a serious expression. Previously, they didn't put anyone else in their eyes except for each other. But now, Lu Ming attracted their attention. Looks like we have another opponent. Tuoba Shi licked his lips with battle intent in his eyes. Yang Potion's eyes flashed, but he didn't say anything. Just when everyone thought that the battle was over, Lu Ming didn't stop. That was because there was still one person alive. Wu Qingkong. Wu Qingkong was running for his life in fear. Damn it! How can Lu Shaoqing be so terrifying? His combat strength has increased too quickly. Once we get out, I must ask the experts in the sect to kill him. He must not be allowed to live. Wu Qingkong's mind was filled with venomous thoughts. Suddenly, he heard the sound of something breaking through the air. He turned around in shock and saw that Lu Ming was already behind him. Boom! Lu Ming could not be bothered to talk nonsense with him. He threw a punch and Wu Qingkong was smashed into pieces. However, Wu Qingkong obviously had a life talisman. With a flash of white light, the life talisman wrapped around him and he disappeared into the air. Lu Ming snorted and flew back to where he was. At this moment, everyone was looking at Lu Ming with awe and respect in their eyes. Too strong. Lu Ming's combat strength was far above the average second-class sky prides. His combat strength was comparable to the 5 giants. It seemed that there was going to be another young giant in the world. Brother Lu, Sandalwood Fairy's beautiful eyes flickered. She looked at Lu Ming and didn't know what to say. Oh, I happened to have a breakthrough in my cultivation when I left 2 days ago. Lu Ming explained. Chapter 1085. Outside the World Academy's Jade Wall. The space trembled and Wu Qingkong appeared in a flash of white light. Ah, damn it! Wu Qingkong roared as soon as he appeared. Everyone's eyes turned to look at him. Qingkong, what's going on? One of the Celestial Martial Sword Sect Supremes frowned and asked Wu Qingkong. Wu Qingkong had been killed. 2 of the top geniuses of the Celestial Martial Sword Sect had died in battle. Lu Shaoqing, it's that bastard Lu Shaoqing, Wu Qingkong roared like a mad beast. What? Lu Shaoqing again? Lu Shaoqing is a god of death. First, he killed Sanguinarium of Cold Blood Hall and many other experts. Then, he killed Wu Tsang. Now, even Wu Qingkong has been killed by him. Hee, 2 of the top geniuses of the Celestial Martial Sword Sect have died in the hands of the same person. How interesting. Cold Blood Hall's face darkened. Why did they have to mention Cold Blood Hall every time Lu Shaoqing was mentioned? Lu Shaoqing again. Why? You're not with Wu Long and the others? The Celestial Martial Sword Sect Supremes asked. Wu Long was the top genius of the previous generation of the Celestial Martial Sword Sect. Wu Long and the others have been killed too. They're dead. Wu Qingkong gritted his teeth. What? Wu Long and the others are dead. Who did it? Did Yang Padian do it? The Celestial Martial Sword Sect Supremes roared, believing that Yang Padian did it. No, it's Lu Shaoqing. He did it. Senior brother Wu Long, senior brother Wu Kai, and Xue Feng joined forces to kill Lu Shaoqing. Who would have thought that they would be killed by Lu Shaoqing instead? Wu Qingkong's face was ferocious as he explained the situation. The scene quieted down. Everyone's face was filled with shock. All of this was actually done by Lu Shaoqing alone. Even with the cooperation of 3 great experts, he was still able to create such a battle record. This was too shocking. Another giant. An elder exclaimed. The people of Cold Blood Hall wanted to cry. They had sent such a god of death in with the people of Cold Blood Hall. How sad. Saint Mansion's secret realm. Buzz. At that moment, the enormous mountain began to tremble. The radiance grew even more resplendent, bringing the crowd's gazes back to the enormous mountain. Lu Ming's gaze also landed on the huge mountain. He didn't devour the blood essence of Xue Feng and the rest because the monarch god was here. If he did that, the monarch god might notice something. Now was not the time to reveal his identity. The light from the mountain became more and more resplendent. Finally, 9 purple rays of light shot out. Whoosh! 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 Suddenly, amidst the purple light, a token flew out from each of them. It's the Sacred Mansion token. Snatch it. There are 9 pieces. This one is mine. Immediately, the scene became chaotic. All kinds of auras erupted and rushed toward the 9 command medallions. There was no doubt that the token that had rushed out of the giant mountain was the real token of the Saint Mansion. Scram! Yang Padian roared in anger. His aura was astonishing. The heavenly halberd in his hand swept out horizontally. Dozens of experts screamed miserably as they were cleaved in half, dying on the spot. Yang Padian made a grabbing motion, and a Saint Mansion token appeared in his hand. His eyes were like lightning as he scanned the surroundings. Everyone was shocked and did not dare to step forward. On the other side, Tuobashir waved his mace and smashed a group of people into meat paste. He then grabbed a Saint Mansion token. The others sighed. They knew that there was no point in thinking about these two tokens. This one is mine. Lu Ming stepped out and rushed toward the nearest Saint Mansion token. A terrifying murderous intent erupted. Many people were shrouded by his murderous intent, and their faces changed in horror. They quickly retreated, not daring to compete with Lu Ming. The power that Lu Ming had just created was too strong. Lu Ming reached out and grabbed a Sacred Mansion token. Yang Patian, Tuobashir, and Lu Ming each had a token. The others did not dare to compete with the three of them, so they could only target the others. This was a bloody battle, and it was incomparably fierce. The experts of the major forces attacked with all their might to compete for the tokens. The palace left behind by an existence that surpassed the Emperor realm was too tempting. Even an Emperor realm expert would go crazy if they came, let alone them. People were constantly killed, and corpses fell like raindrops. In the end, the Ji family gathered and obtained a token under the leadership of a LV4 spirit god expert. The World Academy and Medicine King Valley worked together and also obtained a token under the leadership of a LV4 spirit god expert. The Demon Mountain obtained a token. The most surprising thing was that the Emperor God obtained a token with the Space Will. He was so fast that no one could stop him. There was also a monk whose sleeves fluttered in the wind. He had a baby face and seemed harmless to humans and animals. He killed a group of experts with a single palm strike and seized a command medallion. Even Yang Patian and Tuobashir looked at the monk with a serious expression. The Western Desert Saint Monk. Yang Patian murmured to himself. It's that unscrupulous monk again. Lu Ming whispered. The last token fell into the hands of the Floating Mountain sect. As for the Cold Blood Hall, the Sky Eagle Castle, and the Sky Martial Sword sect, they were very unhappy because their leaders had died in battle. Those who obtained tokens were separated into several areas, far away from the others. The others were helpless. Although they were excited, those who obtained tokens were very powerful. Only the Emperor God looked the weakest, but he had the Space Will, so no one could catch him. This is the Holy Mansion token. With this token, you can enter the Holy Mansion. Lu Ming looked at the token in his hand and then injected his genuine qi into it. Buzz! The Sacred Mansion token suddenly trembled and emitted light. A halo enveloped Lu Ming. In addition, there were 3 more halos floating around him. Why are there 3 more halos? Lu Ming was a little surprised. At this time, the others also realized the problem. As long as they injected their genuine qi, 4 halos would appear on the token. One of them would envelop them, and the other 3 would appear. I know. These 3 halos mean that we can bring 3 more people in. That should be the case. I think there's a formation around the Sacred Mansion. We can only enter if we're enveloped by these halos. Some of them shouted and their eyes lit up. In that case, wouldn't there be an extra 27 spots? Many people looked at those who had obtained tokens, especially Yang Patian. Since the Emperor God had obtained tokens alone, they had extra places. Brother D, I'm willing to pay a high price for 3 places. Can I? Yin Bupo from the Sky Eagle Castle looked at the Emperor God and spoke first. Yin Bupo, you're too greedy. Can you afford to buy 3 places? Someone was unhappy and wanted to buy a place from the Emperor God. Brother Yang, someone looked at Yang Patian and wanted to buy a place from him. Get lost. Yang Patian spat out coldly. Those people could only retreat. Chapter 1086. As for the Ji family, Floating Mountain, Demon Mountain, and the World Academy, they didn't even have enough tokens, so they wouldn't sell them. For a time, only Lu Ming, Monk Wuliang, and the Arch were available. Brother Lu. Sandalwood Fairy looked over. I'll give my slot to Medicine King Valley and the World Academy. Lu Ming smiled. The people from Medicine King Valley and the World Academy were overjoyed. They had 3 more slots now. In the end, Immortal Emperor sold the 3 spots. Unscrupulous Monk was all smiles. Finally, he made a huge profit and sold the 3 spots as well. In this way, excluding Young Potion's 3 slots, there were a total of 33 people who could enter. Buzz! At this time, the light of the giant mountain was extremely bright, forming a huge beam of light that shot into the sky. The beam of light hit the palace in the sky, making a deafening roar. Rumble. The palace slowly appeared. At first, it seemed real and illusory, but slowly, it became real. After a few minutes, the palace became completely real. It was filled with an ancient aura, floating in the air like a huge city. Whoosh! Yang Patian was the first to move. As if he was traveling through space, his body moved and appeared in front of the palace. He then stepped out and rushed in. Let's go, we can't let Yang Patian beat us to it. The others who had a slot shouted and rushed forward, afraid that Yang Patian would beat them to it. If there were treasures in the sacred residence, the first to enter would naturally be able to obtain the benefits. Whoosh! Whoosh! Dozens of figures were shrouded in a circle of light as they rushed toward the palace. Lu Ming and the others were also among them. In front of the palace, there was a half-open door. Yang Patian was about to rush in. Go! The others also rushed in quickly. Nothing happened. Dozens of people rushed through the door. The others who didn't have a slot looked at each other. I don't think there's anything wrong at all. We don't necessarily need a token to enter. The news about the token is spread by the World Academy. It might not be true. Someone said with a fiery gaze. That's right. I don't think anyone from the World Academy has entered before. It's probably not true. There were others who agreed. Charge! I don't believe it. Some people couldn't hold it in any longer and rushed into the palace. However, as he flew, he suddenly let out a miserable shriek, and his entire body exploded, turning into ashes. The others were dumbfounded. Gulp! Those who said they didn't believe the World Academy just now all gasped and swallowed their saliva. Their faces were pale. If they had rushed forward, they would have been the ones to die. Lu Ming and the others rushed in and found a huge corridor. It was very long and extended all the way to the front. What a strong pressure! As soon as they entered this place, everyone landed on the ground. This was because there was a powerful pressure here, and it was a restricted area. Moreover, not only could they not fly, but the pressure on their bodies was also extremely great, causing their speed to decrease by more than 100 times. This is gravity. Lu Ming sensed it carefully and found that this was gravity. It was 100 times stronger than the gravity outside. Everyone circulated their true essence and stepped forward. However, the gravity was too strong. Their speed was about the same as an ordinary person running. Compared to their original speed, it was a far cry. And this corridor seemed to be no less than 100 miles long. However, since they had entered this place, they could only move forward bravely. Gradually, the distance between them slowly increased. Bam! Bam! Yang Patian walked in front. His body glowed as he strode forward. Then, Tuobasher's muscles bulged. Like a wild beast, he also strode forward at an extremely fast speed. In addition, Lu Ming's speed was also extremely fast, second only to Tuobasher. As for the unscrupulous monk, his body was covered in golden light as he walked beside Lu Ming. The two of them came in slightly later, so they were slightly behind Yang Patian and the unscrupulous monk. Behind them were a few burly men. They were the strongest prodigies of the previous generation of their respective forces. Their cultivation had reached the 4th level of the spirit god realm. What was surprising was that the arch-god was also walking beside these people. He had the space concept, so the pressure he faced was much less. As for the second-grade prodigies like Lady Sandalwood and Kong Xian, they were further behind. Everyone strode forward. Slowly, they became more and more accustomed to the gravity here, and their speed became faster and faster. This trip lasted for 2 days. Yang Patian was the first to walk out of the corridor and rushed out. "Stop right there!" Tuoba Shi shouted and followed closely behind Yang Patian. Then, Lu Ming and the unscrupulous monk also stepped out and walked out of the corridor. Boom! Boom! When they walked out of the corridor, they heard a violent roar. In front of the corridor was a large hall. Tuoba Shi and Yang Patian were fighting fiercely. The halberd and mace kept colliding, and the roar was deafening. On both sides of the hall, there were rows of shelves. On the shelves were some jade bottles, jade boxes, and chests. Obviously, the two were fighting for these things. This was the legendary sacred abode of an existence that surpassed the Emperor realm. How precious would the things inside be? Without hesitation, Lu Ming and the unscrupulous monk's eyes lit up as they rushed toward the shelves on both sides. "Get lost! You're courting death!" Yang Patian and Tuoba Shi roared and charged toward the two. Tuoba Shi attacked the unscrupulous monk. He waved his mace and crushed the void. It was like a mountain range smashing toward the unscrupulous monk. "My hair, my Buddha is merciful." The unscrupulous monk chanted the name of Buddha. His body emitted a golden light, and he looked solemn as if he was the reincarnation of Buddha. He slapped out a golden palm print and collided with the mace. With a boom, he blocked Tuoba Shi's attack and the two began to fight. On the other side, Yang Patian charged toward Lu Ming. The halberd slashed down, and the space directly cracked. It even turned into the power of space and wrapped around the halberd, making it more destructive. Lu Ming's 5-colored conception surrounded him, and the 7 dragon powers were added to his body. His blood-red hair fluttered in the wind. The battle sword formed by the 3rd bloodline in his hand changed and turned into a blood-red halberd. The 3rd bloodline was a drop of blood. It could be transformed into a sword, a spear, a saber, or a halberd at will. It could be transformed into anything. Clang! Lu Ming held the blood-red halberd in his hand and slashed down, colliding with Yang Patian's halberd. Clang! A terrifying vibration was heard. The two figures swayed slightly and then fought again. Boom! 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 In the main hall, the 4 of them fought against each other. It was hard to tell who had the upper hand. Peak 2nd level spirit god. Lu Ming realized that Yang Patian's cultivation was at the peak 2nd level spirit god, which was not much higher than his. However, his combat strength was extremely terrifying. He was the strongest young expert that Lu Ming had ever met. The 4 of them fought in the main hall. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged dozens of blows. Chapter 1087. The eyes of the 4 of them flashed. Almost at the same time, they gave up on their opponents and rushed toward the shelves on both sides. They understood that they could not do anything to their opponents for the time being. If they continued to fight, the situation would become even more chaotic when there were more people. Therefore, the 4 of them began to plunder the treasures on the shelves at the same time. Lu Ming waved his hand, and a white light spread out, enveloping the jade bottles, jade boxes, metal boxes, and so on the shelves. They were all put into the mountain river diagram. There was no time to see what they were now. They would put them away first. The 4 of them searched frantically. In just a few breaths, the items on the shelves had been swept clean. In particular, the unscrupulous monk actually put a shelf into his storage ring, which made people speechless. But then, Lu Ming and the others followed suit and put away the shelves. At this time, a few more figures rushed out of the corridor. They looked at the empty hall on both sides and were stunned. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, Lu Ming and the others had already rushed into the depths of the hall. There was a door there. Charge! The experts behind them, including the Emperor God, rushed forward at the same time, following closely behind Lu Ming and the others. After rushing through the door, they arrived at another hall. However, this one was bigger and empty. On the opposite side of the hall, there was still a door, and a faint light spread out. Their eyes lit up, and they rushed in at top speed. It was still a hall, but it was exceptionally spacious. In the air of the hall, there were 4 balls of light shining dazzlingly. They were 4 weapons floating in the air. They were of different colors, but they emitted terrifying pressure. These are ruler spiritual weapons. Yang Patian growled and immediately rushed toward one of them. Lu Ming's eyes also lit up. The so-called ruler spiritual weapons were the emperors of spiritual weapons. Just like the martial emperors of martial artists, they stood at the peak of many spiritual weapons. Ruler spiritual weapons were top-grade level, 9 spiritual weapons. Even some rulers might not have them. This was because ruler spiritual weapons had domains that could assist rulers in battle. Even if a ruler came here, he would be envious, let alone them. They immediately rushed towards an emperor's spirit weapon. Lu Ming rushed towards a small fiery red pagoda. The small pagoda looked like it was made of fire jade, and it emitted an astonishing amount of heat. Sovereign spirit weapon. Behind him, the other experts also arrived. When they saw the emperor's spirit weapons, their eyes immediately turned red and were filled with greed as they pounced towards the 4 weapons. One of them pounced on Lu Ming. One of them was a robust man that was over 40 years old and possessed a cultivation at the 4th level of the spirit god realm. The other was an imperial god. However, Lu Ming was 1 step faster. His body was like a stream of light as he appeared in front of the small pagoda and reached out to grab it. However, just as Lu Ming was about to grab it, the small pagoda emitted a halo of light. Lu Ming's grab was actually unable to grab it. Inscription formation. Lu Ming's eyes moved. This small pagoda was protected by an inscription array. However, Lu Ming felt that as long as he spent some time, he would be able to break it. Bang! Lu Ming turned his claw into a palm and slashed at the halo. Bang! The halo trembled, but it was still blocked. At this moment, the imperial god and the robust man also rushed over. The emperor's spirit weapon is mine. The robust man's eyes turned red as he attacked the small pagoda. The imperial god slashed out with his sword and slashed at the halo. After 2 bangs, the halo was still intact. Get lost! Lu Ming shouted coldly as the blood halberds swept out and attacked the robust man and the imperial god at the same time. The 2 of them were shocked and tried to block it at the same time. The blood halberd carried a terrifying murderous aura as it surged like a tide and suppressed everything. With a bang, the 2 of them were swept away by Lu Ming. Kill! Lu Ming stared at the imperial god and charged towards him. He planned to kill the imperial god here. The imperial god was the most outstanding descendant of De. As long as he killed the imperial god, De would probably be heartbroken. Whoosh! The blood halberd pressed down and slashed at the imperial god's head. The imperial god's face was extremely solemn. The space around his body began to tremble like water waves. Great space slash! The imperial god said solemnly. He held the sword with both hands and slashed out. The space tumbled and a terrifying crack slashed towards Lu Ming. This crack had the power to cut through space and could cut through everything. Of course, this was relative. The blood halberd in Lu Ming's hand changed and turned back into the blood sword. With a flash of sword radiance, the space was cut open, including the great space slash. This was the terrifying part of the 5 slaughter styles. No matter what weapon was used, it could unleash its power. This was because the 5 slaughter styles was not mainly about the moves but about the intent. Once the intent was reached, any weapon would be able to unleash its power. The Imperial God's face changed and he quickly retreated. Kill! Lu Ming's blood-red hair fluttered as his murderous aura surged. He stepped forward and charged towards the Imperial God. Clang! The Imperial God tried his best to block, but he was no match. He spat out blood and retreated with a pale face. It had to be said that the Imperial God was strong. He had merged the Space Will, Sword Will, and Golden Flames Will. Especially after his Space Will reached the 4th level, it was even more mysterious and terrifying. His combat strength was even stronger than Wu Qinkong's. However, compared to Lu Ming, he was still a distance away. He was no match for him. Lu Ming's eyes were cold as he closed in on the Imperial God. The Imperial God had no choice but to use the transient step. His body kept flickering. Whoosh! Whoosh! Lu Ming formed a seal with both hands and a sealed gate was formed. The Imperial God's face changed drastically. He had seen Lu Ming use the sealed gate to seal Xue Feng and the others and then kill them. Space escape! Dishan roared and coughed out a mouthful of blood. However, his body became illusory. Finally, with a bang, his body dissipated and turned into an illusory shadow. His real body had already disappeared without a trace. No one knew where it had escaped to. Lu Ming looked at the defense line outside the main hall. Just a moment ago, the Emperor God had actually traveled through space and appeared in a main hall outside. What a mysterious space will. Lu Ming's eyes flashed coldly. He did not continue to pursue. There were many opportunities to kill the Imperial God. Get lost. He turned around and rushed toward the brawny man. The brawny man was trying his best to break the small pagoda's array. Lu Ming rushed back and struck out with his palm. The brawny man was sent flying while vomiting blood. The brawny man looked at Lu Ming with a grave expression. On the other side, an expert from each side rushed toward Yang Patian, Unscrupulous Monk, and Tuoba Shi. The experts who rushed toward Unscrupulous Monk and Tuoba Shi vomited blood and retreated. As for the experts who rushed toward Yang Patian, they were trapped by Yang Potion's space will and killed in one blow. Yang Patian was not in a good mood today. Originally, he was high and mighty in the central continent. Other than the other 4 of the 5 young giants, no one was his match. However, in this trip to the Saint Mansion's secret realm, Tuoba Shi appeared first. His combat strength was not weaker than Yang Potion's and he fought with him several times. Later, Lu Ming and Unscrupulous Monk appeared one after another. They displayed astonishing combat strength that was not weaker than Yang Patian. Moreover, Yang Patian had never seen them before. This made him extremely unhappy and angry. Chapter 1088. The other experts' expressions were ugly, but they did not dare to continue snatching. The combat power of Lu Ming and the other 3 was too strong. Obviously, they were much stronger than them. If they went crazy and went all out to kill them, they would be in danger. For a moment, no one dared to fight with Lu Ming and the others. However, after a flash of light in their eyes, they bypassed Lu Ming and the others and rushed into the depths of the hall. There was a door there that led inside. Boom! Boom! Lu Ming kept attacking. His 3rd bloodline turned into a sword and slashed at the light shield protecting the small pagoda. After dozens of attacks, the light shield was finally broken. Lu Ming was overjoyed and grabbed the small pagoda. It's so hot. Lu Ming felt that his palm was almost burned, and there was a meaty smell. Lu Ming quickly put the small pagoda into the mountain river diagram. Almost at the same time, Yang Patian and the others also broke the formation and put away the treasures. At the same time, the four of them rushed inside. There was another hall inside. Rumble. As soon as they entered the hall, they saw that the masters were fighting fiercely. There was only one thing floating in the air of the main hall. It was a jade plate that was sparkling and translucent, emitting a vast and boundless pressure. This pressure was too shocking, surpassing everything. It was as if it was the embodiment of the entire world. It was incomparably terrifying, far surpassing the sovereign's spiritual weapon from before. What kind of treasure is this? It's amazing. Lu Ming was a little stunned. Yang Patian and the others were also a little dazed. Then, their eyes lit up with a blazing fire. Judging by its aura, it had surpassed the Emperor's spiritual weapon. It must be a peerless divine weapon used by someone who had surpassed the martial Emperor realm. It seemed that the World Academy was right. This was indeed the residence of someone who had surpassed the martial Emperor realm. How terrifying would a divine weapon used by someone who had surpassed the martial Emperor realm be? Whoosh! Whoosh! Almost at the same time, the four of them rushed toward the jade plate. Get lost! Kill! Their attacks were aimed at the masters. The masters' faces changed drastically. They quickly blocked the attacks and retreated with injuries. Damn it! Those people were furious and sullen, but there was nothing they could do. They were truly helpless. They were all geniuses of the previous generation. In their era, they were all all-powerful figures. They were high and mighty, looking down on geniuses of the same generation. But after 10 or 20 years, the current generation had reached the golden age. Each and every one of the geniuses was countless times more brilliant than them. And now, the geniuses of the younger generation had to berate them and suppress them. This made them feel a sense of sorrow. This treasure is mine. Yang Potion's eyes flashed with cold killing intent. What a joke, who do you think you are? Tuoba Shi shouted coldly, not giving Yang Patian any face. And me fa, I think this treasure is fated to be with this poor monk. Everyone, please don't fight with this little monk over it. Unscrupulous monk still had a smile on his face, but his fiery eyes betrayed him. Lu Ming was too lazy to talk nonsense with them and rushed towards the jade plate. Boom! A golden palm print covered Lu Ming. It was that heartless monk. Benefactor, this treasure is really fated to be with this little monk. Why do you have to fight with this little monk over it? Unscrupulous monk said. Fated my ass. Stupid monk, get lost. Lu Ming slashed at unscrupulous monk with his sword, colliding with the golden palm print. Benefactor, don't be angry. Unscrupulous monk shouted. His body glowed like a golden Buddha as he threw out a few palm strikes with terrifying power. Stupid monk, stop pretending in front of me. You were the one who used a fake sacred mansion token to cause a huge battle. Don't think that others don't know. I saw it by chance. Lu Ming shouted. Unscrupulous monk's face stiffened. Yang Patian and Tuoba Shi, who were fighting, stopped and looked at unscrupulous monk coldly. So you're the one who stirred up trouble. Stupid monk, die. Yang Patian roared and charged towards unscrupulous monk. Tuoba Shi also held his mace and charged towards unscrupulous monk. The two of them were filled with killing intent towards unscrupulous monk. How could they be fooled by unscrupulous monk? They had been trying to find out who the mastermind was. My hair. Benefactors, it's a misunderstanding. Unscrupulous monk shouted and jumped up and down, trying his best to defend himself. Lu Ming moved and pounced towards the jade plate. Buzz! Suddenly, the jade plate vibrated and emitted a terrifying aura. Lu Ming felt like he was going against heaven and earth. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell down. Buzz! Buzz! The jade plate vibrated slightly and emitted a supreme light. Countless inscriptions appeared in the hall and formed terrifying chain-like objects that danced in the hall. Unscrupulous monk, Yang Patian, and Tuoba Shur could not help but stop what they were doing and look around in shock. They were also greatly shocked by the sudden change in events. What's going on? At this moment, a group of people rushed in. It was Sandalwood Fairy, Kong Xian, and the Emperor God. At this moment, the people behind had already arrived. When they saw this scene, they were inexplicably shocked. Whoosh! A vortex suddenly appeared on the ground. The vortex was black and it emitted a terrifying suction and devouring force. Ah! Oh no! Save me! A few of the weaker cultivators screamed as they were devoured by the vortex and disappeared without a trace. Oh no! Lu Ming and the rest rushed up to the sky, but it was extremely difficult for them. The devouring force was too strong and it was pulling them down. Save me! A sharp cry was heard as Yin Bupo transformed into his true form, a giant eagle. He flapped his wings with all his might in an attempt to defend himself. However, he could not do so and was being pulled down. With a loud roar, his figure disappeared. At the same time, Kong Xian was also being devoured. Sandalwood Fairy's glabella emitted a silver light. Elixir pills flew out and formed a pair of wings to support her. However, she was still sinking rapidly. Get out of here! Lu Ming roared and flew towards Sandalwood Fairy. He grabbed her slender waist and tried to bring her out of the hall. However, it was impossible. The devouring force was too strong and he could not move her at all. Brother Lu, don't worry about me. Escape by yourself. Sandalwood Fairy pushed Lu Ming and fell into the vortex. At this moment, Yang Patian and the rest tried their best to get out of the hall. However, it was useless. The devouring force was too strong and they could not get out. Lu Ming was in the same situation. His body was sinking too. No, Lu Ming saw a few level 4 spirit gods and the Emperor God being devoured. In the end, only Lu Ming, Yang Patian, Unscrupulous Monk, and Tuoba Shur were left. Buzz! Suddenly, the devouring force surged and multiplied several times. Lu Ming and the other 3 were swallowed and dashed into the vortex. Chapter 1089. Lu Ming felt like he was drifting in the eternal darkness, not knowing where he was drifting to. Slowly, his mind became more and more confused, as if his memories were fading. Everything that happened in the past seemed to become blurry and slowly dissipated. Slowly, Lu Ming became oblivious to everything. After an unknown period of time, Lu Ming suddenly sat up. With a creak, he found himself sitting on a bed. Where is this? What happened to me? I seem to have had a very long dream just now. Lu Ming looked around in confusion. At this moment, the door opened and a beautiful girl walked in. The girl was 14 or 15 years old and was very beautiful. When she saw Lu Ming wake up, she immediately revealed a happy smile and cheered, "Brother Ming, you're finally awake. You really scared me to death." Yao, Looking at Lu Yao's worried expression, Lu Ming felt warm in his heart. He then asked, "Yao, what happened to me? I remember that I went to awaken my bloodline 3 days ago. What happened after that?" "Brother Ming, you went to awaken your bloodline 3 days ago. During the process, you suddenly fainted. You have been unconscious for 3 days. During these 3 days, you have been having nightmares. You kept calling out strange names like De. Brother Ming, are you alright?" Lu Yao said worriedly. "I'm fine. It's just a nightmare." Lu Ming smiled faintly. He really had a dream. It was a very long dream. But for some reason, that dream was becoming more and more blurry in his mind. He almost couldn't remember it. He only vaguely felt that in that dream, Lu Yao left him. Later on, he obtained a treasure, cultivated to become an expert, and went on an adventure on the continent, he only had a vague impression of it. But the more he thought about it, the more blurry and ethereal the dream became. What a strange dream. Lu Ming smiled. He, Lu Ming, was just a useless young master in Fiery Wind City who couldn't cultivate. How could he have such a strange dream? Yao, did my bloodline awakening fail? Lu Ming asked. Brother Ming. Lu Yao wanted to say something but stopped. Say it. I'm fine. Lu Ming smiled. Brother Ming, it's a failure, but it's fine. Even if Brother Ming can't cultivate, your place in Yao's heart won't change. My father has already discussed it with your mother. In half a month, we will hold our wedding. Lu Yao blinked her eyes and said. After she finished speaking, she was a little shy and her face was a little red. The wedding will be held in half a month. Lu Ming was slightly taken aback. At this moment, he didn't know why, but he felt an indescribable pain in his heart. A figure appeared in his mind. This figure was very blurry, and he couldn't see the face clearly. It was a person that Lu Ming had met in his dream. A woman. A feeling of reluctance rippled in Lu Ming's heart. This figure seemed to be very important to him. Who is she? Why do I feel heartache? Was it really a dream? Lu Ming muttered to himself in a daze. Brother Ming, what's wrong? Don't scare Yao, Lu Yao called out softly. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He reacted and smiled, nothing, I just thought of that dream again. Brother Ming, after all, it's just a dream. Don't think too much. Drink the medicine. Lu Yao picked up the medicine and fed it to Lu Ming. At this moment, two people walked in from outside the door. One was a beautiful woman, and the other was a beautiful teenage girl. Mother, Mid-Autumn Moon. Lu Ming called out. Ming, have a good rest. In half a month, you will be the groom. Li Ping smiled slightly, revealing a doting expression. Yes, young master. Mid-Autumn Moon, congratulations to you. The girl by the side said softly. Mid-Autumn Moon. Lu Ming looked at Mid-Autumn Moon. In that dream, Mid-Autumn Moon seemed to have become a martial arts genius. However, it was just a feeling. Lu Ming felt that the dream was a little blurrier. As time passed, it slowly faded away. Ming, you just woke up. Have a good rest. Don't think too much. Li Ping said. Then, she left the room with Mid-Autumn Moon and Lu Yao. That dream is so strange. Who is that figure? In the room, Lu Ming was lying on the bed in a daze. Time passed quickly. Day by day, Lu Ming's body recovered quickly. The dream in his mind became more and more blurred. As time passed, it became more and more blurred. He believed that he would soon forget it completely. But he didn't know why. Every time he thought of that dream, a figure would appear, causing Lu Ming to feel a piercing pain in his heart. Who is that figure? Why does it feel so real? Lu Ming whispered. That was the figure of a woman. In Lu Ming's mind, it was hard to erase. In the backyard of the Lu family, a small stream flowed. Beside the stream, there was a pavilion. In the pavilion, a young man and a young woman were cuddling together. Brother Ming, Yao, will marry you tomorrow. We will never be separated from each other again. Lu Yao said softly. Her eyes were filled with anticipation and shyness. Lu Ming hugged Lu Yao. His mood was extremely relaxed. The gentle breeze emitted a faint fragrance of flowers. This is really good. Lu Ming looked at the sky and thought. If he couldn't cultivate, then so be it. Wouldn't it be good if he could live an ordinary life? Lu Ming enjoyed such a life. That dream was ultimately a dream. Just let it drift away with the wind. Only that figure couldn't be erased. Occasionally, it would appear in Lu Ming's mind. Lu Ming, wake up. Suddenly, a voice entered Lu Ming's ears. Lu Ming was stunned. He turned his head and looked around, but he didn't see anyone. Lu Yao was still in his arms, as if she didn't hear anything. What are you looking at? I'm here, in the stream. That voice sounded again. Lu Ming was shocked and hurriedly looked toward the stream. He saw a little tortoise floating in the stream, staring at him with its eyes wide open. Are you talking to me? Lu Ming's pupils suddenly widened, revealing a look of disbelief. What are you looking at? Who else could it be if not me? The little turtle berated. Brother Ming, what's wrong? Who are you talking to? Lu Yao looked at Lu Ming in surprise. Lu Ming took a deep breath to calm himself down. He said, nothing, you heard wrong. Yao, you can go back first. I'll pick you up tomorrow. Okay, I'll wait for you. Lu Yao blinked his eyes and trotted away. Then, Lu Ming looked at the little turtle again and said in surprise, a tortoise? No, a turtle can actually talk. Could it be a legendary king-level turtle? No, Senior, it's Senior. Junior Lu Ming pays his respects to Senior. Lu Ming bowed to the little turtle. As far as he knew, only the legendary demonic beasts that had reached the king level could speak. He was shocked that there was a king-level monster in the backyard of the Lu family. There might not even be a king-level monster in the entire Burning Sun Empire. King-level my ass. I'm the world turtle, the head of the top 10 battle beasts. What king-level? It's not even worthy to carry my shoes. Boy, Lu Ming, you're in an illusion. Wake up quickly. Are you going to stay in it for the rest of your life? That illusion was too powerful. It erased his real memory and made him fall into an illusion forever. He couldn't extricate himself. This time, it was really dangerous. If it weren't for Dandan, he might really be trapped in the illusion forever. That would be equivalent to dying. Thinking of this, Lu Ming couldn't help but feel a little scared. His back was wet with cold sweat. Kid, this place is no small matter. Emperors can't do it. Be careful. I'm going to hide. After Dandan finished speaking, it automatically went into the mountain river diagram. Lu Ming looked around. He remembered that they were swallowed by a vortex, but he was the only one around. Yang Patian, Tuoba Shi, Sandalwood Fairy, and the others were nowhere to be seen. This was a passage that led straight ahead. Lu Ming pondered for a moment and walked forward. After walking through the passage, he arrived at a secret room. The secret room was very large. Above the secret room, Lu Ming saw a longan-sized bead floating in the air. The moment Lu Ming stepped into the secret room, the bead suddenly emitted a dazzling light. Amidst the light, a figure appeared. The figure sat cross-legged in the air, and the bead happened to be between the figure's eyebrows. The figure was not very burly, but the aura it emitted was earth-shattering. It gave Lu Ming the feeling that he was facing the heavenly path. A vast heavenly might filled the air. It was irresistible and unstoppable. This was Lu Ming's intuition because facing this figure was like facing the entire world. It was not that Lu Ming had never felt the majesty and pressure of a ruler, but compared to this figure, it was simply child's play. It was as if a ruler was an ant in front of this figure. Gulp. Lu Ming swallowed a mouthful of saliva and raised his head with difficulty to look at the figure. Fortunately, the supreme aura was restrained after a slight release. The figure opened his eyes and looked at Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming felt as if he had been completely seen through. You actually managed to break through the illusion I set up. Not bad. The figure said. Junior Lu Ming greets Senior. Lu Ming bowed. He knew that the existence above the ruler in the World Academy was most likely the figure in front of him. He was secretly shocked. It was said that the Saint Mansion's secret realm had existed for hundreds of thousands of years. Could it be that the person in front of him had lived for hundreds of thousands of years? This was really unimaginable. As if seeing through Lu Ming's thoughts, the figure said, "Little guy, don't think too much. I can't have lived for so many years. What you see is just the sacred heart I left behind and a trace of my origin imprint. The real me has already fallen many years ago." Sacred heart? Lu Ming was puzzled. He didn't understand what a sacred heart was at all. Well, it's normal that you don't understand. You're in a remote and barren island, so it's normal that you don't know. Above the ruler is the Saint Realm, also known as the Saint Realm. You've condensed a sacred heart. The figure explained casually. Saint Realm, Saint Realm. Lu Ming muttered to himself. He finally knew what the realm above the ruler realm was. Saint Realm, Saint Realm. The figure in front of him must be a Saint Realm expert. Well, little guy, you have great luck. Unfortunately, you're not an inscriber. When I was alive, I became a saint through the path of inscription. Otherwise, I could pass on my mantle to you. The figure suddenly let out a long sigh. Inscriber inheritance. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Although he wasn't an inscriber, his second body was. This time, he focused on the path of inscription and had progressed to an extremely profound realm. It would be great if his second body was here. Senior, did the others not pass the illusion? Lu Ming asked. No, they all failed. However, I won't really make things difficult for them. They've all woken up. Look. The saint waved his hand and a series of images suddenly appeared in the air. Yang Patian, Tuoba Shi, Monk Wuliang, Kong Xian, and the others were in a secret room, looking around. Sandalwood Fairy. Chapter 1091. This little girl is very talented in the path of inscription, but unfortunately, she's still a little lacking. I'll give her some benefits and hope that she can benefit from it. The saint said. Lu Ming was happy for Sandalwood Fairy. Although the saint had already fallen, he was still a saint when he was alive, an existence that surpassed the emperor's. If he said that he would give some benefits, it would definitely be no small matter. Even the emperors would be jealous. Alright, little guy, since you were able to come here and pass my test, I won't let you go back empty-handed. I'll give you some benefits and then send you out. With that, the saint waved his hand and the images disappeared without a trace. Senior, wait a minute, I might be able to inherit your mantle. Lu Ming hurriedly said. You? Ha, little guy, don't talk nonsense. I see that you don't have any spirit fire at all. How can you inherit my mantle? The saint smiled faintly, looking very calm. Senior, have you heard of the twin life restriction? Lu Ming asked. Twin life restriction? The saint frowned slightly and looked puzzled. Obviously, he had never heard of it. Senior, the twin life restriction can allow one to cultivate a second body. Lu Ming immediately told him about the twin life restriction and what he had obtained. When the saint first heard that the twin life restriction could actually allow one to cultivate a second body that was the same as the original body and could be cultivated wholeheartedly, he was extremely shocked. Even with his knowledge, he had never heard of such a strange technique in the world. Later on, when he heard that Lu Ming had obtained it in the Battle of Providence, he felt relieved. It was not strange to obtain any kind of fortuitous encounter in the Battle of Providence. This was because the saint had also participated in the Battle of Providence when he was young. There's actually such a secret technique in the world. According to what you said, not only did your second body inherit your talent, but it also has no distracting thoughts. In that case, it's really suitable for my mantle. The saint sighed and his eyes lit up. Back then, due to an accident, he was seriously injured and on the verge of death. He fled to the divine wilderness continent and found this mystic realm in order to avoid his enemies, but in the end, he still died there, leaving behind his saint heart and a wisp of imprint. The imprint was attached to the saint heart, which was why it could be preserved for so many years, but it would dissipate sooner or later. However, when an expert was about to fall, they would not wish for their life's cultivation and achievements to go up in smoke. They would want to find a suitable successor to pass on their legacy. Lu Ming was undoubtedly a suitable candidate. But Senior, my second body is currently trapped in a place by an enemy. I'm afraid it won't be able to come for the time being. Lu Ming sighed. Oh. How about this? You take this disc array. As long as you give this disc array to your second body and let him activate the inscriptions on it, you can be directly transmitted here. A disc array appeared in the saint's hand and handed it to Lu Ming. Lu Ming was overjoyed. He took it and thanked the saint again. Well, my name is Tian Xian. You can call me Tian Xian Saint. That's it. I'll send you out now. There's no need to open this secret realm anymore. I'll seal this secret realm forever. No one can enter. After the heavenly profound saint finished speaking, he was about to send Lu Ming and the others out. Senior, please wait. Lu Ming blurted out. The heavenly profound saint was startled. Allow me to disguise myself. I still have enemies outside. Lu Ming chuckled as his figure changed once again. A moment later, his figure became thinner and turned into a pale-faced young man. Even his aura changed tremendously. Now, no one could recognize him. Done. Lu Ming said. The heavenly profound saint waved his hand, causing the space to twist. Lu Ming felt a force pulling him away, causing his figure to disappear instantly. At this moment, Sandalwood Fairy, Yang Patian, and the others outside the Saint Mansion were all enveloped by a power and disappeared. World Academy, outside the all-knowing Jade Disc. The 9 light pillars suddenly disappeared, allowing the all-knowing Jade Disc to return to its calm state. What just happened? The place was immersed in an uproar. Even the 9 Heavens Supremes were astounded. What just happened? Why did the 9 light pillars suddenly disappear? Those who went in haven't come out yet. A supremacy from a major faction said with a grim expression. Many people looked at a supremacy from the World Academy. I don't know either. This has never happened before. The supremacy from the World Academy said solemnly. Can you open it again? A supremacy asked. The supremacy from the World Academy shook his head, causing an uproar among the crowd. There were many people from the various major powers within. In fact, the strongest successors of the Floating Mountain and Devil Mountain were all within as well. If they were to be trapped within, it would be an incomparably huge loss for them. However, the people from the Sky Martial Sword Sect and the Cold Blood Hall were gloating. This was because their successors had been killed by Lu Ming and they had come out long ago. The most outstanding prodigies of the previous generation had also been killed. Even if the rest of them did not come out, they would not have suffered as great a loss as the other forces. At this moment, the space above the all-knowing Jade Disc twisted as figures emerged one by one. They're out. They're out. Many people were overjoyed. More than 10,000 people appeared in the sky. The crowd saw Yang Patian, Sandalwood Fairy, Kong Xian, and other geniuses among them. What's going on? How's the sacred mansion? One by one, the supremacies asked with excitement in their eyes. Previously, when Wu Qingkong was killed, they learned about the sacred mansion from Wu Qingkong. They were all shocked but also looked forward to it. They couldn't wait to rush in themselves. An existence surpassing the Emperor realm was too tempting, especially for many supremacies. They were stuck at the supremacy level and couldn't break through to the Emperor realm. If they could obtain the inheritance or enlightenment of an existence surpassing the Emperor realm, they might be able to break through. In a flash, Sandalwood Fairy, Kong Xian, Junyu, and the others flew to their respective supremacies and told them about the situation in the sacred mansion. What? You all failed. When they heard that Kong Xian and the other geniuses didn't pass the test, they sighed with regret. But then, they looked at Yang Patian, Tuoba Shi, and Monk Wuliang. These people had surpassed the second-tier geniuses. They were the top geniuses. Perhaps they had succeeded. My hair, Buddha is merciful. I'm ashamed. My mind is not strong enough. I still need to train myself. Monk Wuliang had a solemn expression as he chanted the name of Buddha. His face was filled with compassion. Lu Ming among the crowd looked at him with disdain. If he hadn't seen the monk's true appearance, he would have mistaken him for an eminent monk. Monk Wuliang's words implied that he had failed too. Damn it, that illusion is too powerful. I didn't pass it either. Tuoba Shi grinned. Tuoba Shi, we'll fight another day. Yang Patian said coldly. Then, he stepped out and headed out of the World Academy, disappearing in an instant. No one tried to stop him. Not only was Yang Patian a peerless talent, he was also from the heaven-suppressing godly troop. Chapter 1092. It was obvious that he had failed as well. It seemed that no one had succeeded this time. No, there was one more person. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Where was Lu Shaoqing, the young genius who had killed Xue Luozi and the experts of Cold Blood Hall, Wu Cang, Xue Feng and the other LV4 spirit gods, and Wu Qingkong? Why was he nowhere to be seen? Where's Lu Shaoqing? The Supremes of Cold Blood Hall and Sky Martial Sword Sect scanned the area with their sharp eyes. They spread out their spiritual senses to search for Lu Ming. Supremes, Lu Shaoqing is good at disguising himself. He can even change his aura. He must be in the crowd. Sanguinarum shouted. He had fought with Lu Shaoqing in Pill City, so he knew Lu Shaoqing's appearance and aura very well. However, Lu Shaoqing's appearance and aura were completely different when they were in the Saint Mansion's secret realm. If he had not recognized Lu Ming's devouring power, he would not have recognized Lu Ming's identity. Therefore, he knew that Lu Ming must be proficient in the art of disguise. Do you think I wouldn't be able to find you if you disguised yourself in the crowd? I'll check you one by one. A terrifying aura rose from the Sky Martial Sword Sect's Supremes. His spiritual senses shrouded Lu Ming and the others who had entered the Saint Mansion's secret realm like a storm. Many people's expressions changed drastically. Lu Ming's expression also changed slightly before returning to normal. Check them one by one. How are you going to do that? Some Supremes from other forces said unhappily. Just soul search them one by one. The Sanguinarum Supreme sneered. Ha, soul search, who do you think you are? How can I let you soul search the disciples of Floating Mountain Sect? The Supremes from Floating Mountain Sect laughed coldly. That's right, who do you think you are? How can I let you soul search the disciples of Sky Eagle Castle? If you want to capture Lu Shaoqing, think of a way yourself. The Supremes from Sky Eagle Castle sneered. Some of the Supremes from the Overlord forces looked coldly at the Supremes from Cold Blood Hall and Sky Martial Sword Sect. They were all Overlord forces, so they were not afraid of them. The Celestial Martial Sword Sect and Cold Blood Hall had suffered heavy losses because of Lu Shaoqing. Wasn't it ridiculous that he wanted to search their disciples' souls? The faces of the Supremes from Cold Blood Hall and Sky Martial Sword Sect turned ugly. The disciples of the Overlord factions may leave, but the other factions and rogue cultivators must stay behind. We will search their souls. The Supreme Being of the Celestial Martial Sword Sect pondered for a moment before speaking up. What? You want to search our souls? No, don't be so overbearing. I will never agree. This is the World Academy, not the Sky Martial Sword Sect or Cold Blood Hall. Immediately, the people from the smaller factions started shouting. Everyone had their own secrets, so how could he allow others to search his soul? Shut up! The supreme being of the sky martial sword sect bellowed as a boundless sword might burst forth, causing many people to gasp for breath. Overlord forces were tyrannical and tyrannical. Other than forces of the same level, other forces were just ants in their eyes. That was the truth. Once the emperor appeared, no one dared to challenge him. Whoosh whoosh, at this moment, the wind and clouds gathered high in the sky. Endless clouds gathered to form a huge face, and boundless emperor's aura emanated from it. The emperor has appeared. Someone shouted. Many people's faces changed drastically. Greetings, Your Majesty. Everyone in the World Academy, be it the ordinary disciples or the supreme beings, bowed respectfully. Because this was the Emperor of the World Academy. The people from the other factions also hurriedly bowed. This was their respect for the Emperor. Let them go. Since we are in the World Academy must ensure everyone's safety. The Emperor said indifferently, but his voice was firm. But, the supreme being of the Sky Martial Sword sect wanted to say something. Say no more. Go. The Emperor interrupted him. The Supremes of the Sky Martial Sword sect and Cold Blood Hall nodded. They had no choice but to obey the Emperor's words. Let's go. The supreme being of the Sky Martial Sword sect glanced at the people from the smaller factions and the rogue cultivators, and then left with the people from the Sky Martial Sword sect. The supreme being of Cold Blood Hall also left with the people from Cold Blood Hall. After that, the people from the other overlords also left. With a whoosh, the huge face in the sky disappeared without a trace. The Emperor's aura also disappeared without a trace, as if it had never appeared. However, the people from the smaller factions did not leave. They planned to leave through the teleportation formation of the World Academy. This was because the Sky Martial Sword sect and Cold Blood Hall might intercept them outside the World Academy. It was too dangerous to go out like this. The teleportation formation was the safest way. The World Academy had no reason to refuse. This was because they had to pay a large sum of spiritual crystals and primordial stones to use the teleportation formation. Lu Ming was also among the crowd. He also planned to use the teleportation formation to leave the World Academy. In the sky, Kong Xian and Sandalwood Fairy were looking around. They were probably looking for Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming did not plan to show himself. He found a random mountain and sat down cross-legged to cultivate quietly. There were too many people now. There would definitely be a queue for the teleportation formation. It would be better to leave in a few days. After the three of them left, Lu Ming set off. After paying a sum of primordial stones, Lu Ming stepped into the teleportation formation. Saint City, I'm here. Xiaoqing, how are you now? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. His destination was the Saint City of the Central Continent. It was the imperial capital of the Central Continent ancient Saint Dynasty, the largest city in the world. The teleportation formation flashed and Lu Ming's figure disappeared. The Saint City of the Central Continent was the largest city in the Divine region. It was the imperial capital of the ancient Saint Dynasty. There were 8 citadels surrounding the Saint City. These 8 citadels all had teleportation formations. If an outsider wanted to enter the Saint City, they had to first teleport to the citadel and then fly to the Saint City. On this day, the teleportation formation of one of the citadels in the east flashed and Lu Ming's figure appeared. Lu Ming did not stop at the citadel. He left the citadel and soared into the sky, flying towards the Saint City. The citadel was 10 million miles away from the Saint City. However, Lu Ming's current speed was terrifying. Soon, he crossed the 10 million miles and a huge city appeared in front of him. Ancient, vicissitudes of life, filled with the traces of time. This was Lu Ming's first impression of the Saint City. The huge city walls were filled with the marks of swords and sabers. It seemed to be describing the ancient history of the Saint City. The central continent's holy city was very large and majestic. However, it was definitely not the largest city in the divine wilderness continent, nor was it the top. At the very least, the nine-dragon city of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace was much larger than the holy city. However, the Saint City was still the largest city in the world. The holy city had existed for far too long. It had left behind countless legends, and it also contained countless secrets. Moreover, there were many entrances to secret realms in the Saint City. In fact, those secret realms could be considered as a part of the Saint City. Together with those secret realms, the Saint City was terrifyingly huge. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.